Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another round of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And today marks round 9 of the 13-round calendar, and we are here in Brazil for what is expected to be an absolute thriller of a round because there's much on the line today, with this being the final round before we conclude the first part of the season and we go into the mid-season break. That's right, it is the case that after this week we will have a pause from the racing for a week, returning later on in September, and that means that our drivers will be looking to get the most they can out of this round in order to go into the break on the all-time high and therefore come back strong going into the final 4 rounds of the season. Now, as our drivers get ready to go racing, you can see someone in the background doing their final warm-up in this final pre-warm-up practice session. In this case, we should take you through our schedule. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. It is the case that in just under 40 minutes time, we'll be going qualifying. That'll be our 15-minute session before we make our way into our one and only race on the schedule for tonight, well, this being an Alpha round. And here's the case at 8 o'clock, we'll be going racing for 60 minutes around the São Paulo circuit, the Interlagos circuit, for we are here at the Autódromo José Carlos Pace circuit, and that is 60 minutes of racing in the feature race for that all-important mandatory pit stop. Now, we should point out to you, of course, that all the racing you do see on screen has already occurred. It occurred earlier on in the week. It was back on the Monday, the 5th of September. Here's the case, we're bringing you all the action as if it were live. And just to introduce myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And here's the case, I'll be bringing you all of your broadcasts tonight, indeed for the remainder of the season, and what a journey it has been so far. And this broadcast being brought to you live on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. Alternatively, if you're more of a YouTube individual, you can always go to youtube.com or youtube.co.uk and search for Paul Walsh or TX141TX, and you can tune in on YouTube. But regardless, it is the case we can see the chat, and therefore we can interact. You guys and girls tune in. Hope you're all doing well and are set for a fantastic round of racing, as all of our drivers are definitely getting set for it now. And well, let's talk a little bit more about the season so far and what still lies ahead. It is the case, of course, that last time out, back on the 29th of August, our drivers went to the Donington Park circuit in the United Kingdom to wrap up the series tour of continental Europe, and it is the case that the Donington Park circuit was our penultimate sprint race round. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we've only got one more sprint race round available, and that will be in round number 10 when we return from the mid-season break. More on that very shortly. That is the case at Donington Park. We saw 3 races, 3 very unique races, in the fact that throughout, whilst it was the same format as our normal sprint race rounds, the battling up and down the field was absolutely brilliant. A number of drivers have gone for car swaps as well, and some of those car swaps had worked out very well, and some less so, and some in between. And we saw plenty of battles, particularly in race number 3 at Donington Park in the sprint feature, where it was the case the 30 minutes was absolutely climatic. But before that, we were, of course, at Imola in Italy, and prior to that, the Red Bull Ring and Monza, and then Alton Park beforehand on the 1st of August, and that's when we kicked off our European tour. And all of our European rounds really continuing the theme back from our opening 3 rounds, which was close-knit racing, where it was sprint race rounds, alternatively in the Alpha Challenge round. You name it, was the case. Plenty of battles and indeed plenty of fighting for those key championship points. And preceding our European tour, we were in Japan back on the 25th of July for round number 3, our second sprint race round at Fuji Speedway. Before that, our first sprint race round, I should have said it was our second feature race round at Fuji Speedway, but it was definitely our first sprint race round back at Laguna Seca in the United States of America on the 18th of July. And then we kicked, of course, everything off back on the 11th of July at Belle Isle in the state of Detroit, where it is the case, and not the state of Detroit, the city of Detroit, I should say, getting my states and my cities mixed up there. It is the case, having a difficulty so far, but Belle Isle was a difficult one for our drivers, battling up and down the streets, and indeed trying to keep it out of the walls, and that's where we kicked it all off. And now we are here today, 5th of September, of course, where our drivers took to the circuit for the Interlagos circuit in the South American continent, in the country of Brazil, and it is the case that we'll be following this up with our mid-season break and in our final 4 rounds, starting off with the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, known as Mosport in short, and that will be on the 19th of September, the racing. More on the broadcast date later on tonight, and that will be our final sprint race round before we have 2 Alpha Challenge rounds back-to-back, starting off with Mid-Ohio when we return to the United States of America, all of our final 3 rounds being the United States of America, of course, and it'll be Watkins Glen as our penultimate round, of course, the birthplace of post-war road racing in the United States, and then we'll be wrapping it it all up and bringing it all to a close with what is going to be our special round at Road Atlanta on the 10th of October. Now, what does the special round entail? Well, it is the case. It is in pink there compared to what is our feature race rounds being in blue and our sprint race rounds being in yellow. But more importantly, it's still to be decided exactly what the format is going to be at Road Atlanta. But we were expecting some sort of feature race, but a different spin compared to our Alpha Challenge rounds. And well, we'll look forward to find out all the details when we get a little bit closer to the season finale. As we look from our calendar to our circuit for today, it is a case, of course, that we are at the Autódromo José Carlos Pace circuit, the Grand Prix variant of which, the most common one that you'll typically see in major motorsporting events, particularly Formula 1, which this circuit is a regular feature on the calendar of Formula 1 seasons, and the circuit map provided us by simracerwiki.com doesn't quite tell the full story of this circuit, located in the neighbourhood of Interlagos within the city of São Paulo in Brazil. It is the case, it's nicknamed Interlagos, it's a bit simpler to say rather than Autódromo José Carlos Pace every time, but it is the case many will refer to it as affectionately as Interlagos, and this circuit, made up of 15 corners, is a circuit which really puts drivers to the test with regards to the fact it has multiple off-camber corners here. Off-camber in English is where the road surface slopes away from corner apex, so it means essentially you're very at risk of understeer going through corner apex, and in these touring car racing class cars, which are front engine, front wheel drive, of course, it is the case that our drivers will need to balance that understeer. We're trying to get on the throttle as soon as possible on corner exit to carry the speed from corner to corner, but there are multiple corners here that are off camber. We've also got multiple straightaways, and we have, more significantly, got multiple elevation changes. This circuit has one of the most pronounced elevation changes over the entirety of the lap, where the highest point is at turn 15, and the lowest point, if my memory serves me correctly, is all the way down at turn number 5. And it is the case that our drivers over the course of the lap will see multiple elevation changes that will really put them to the test, and it's the run from turn number 4 downhill into 5 and uphill through turns 6 through to 12, which is a downhill run from turns 10 to 12, where our drivers will need to balance the art of getting on the throttle nice and early, dealing with those off-camber corners, and also getting ready to deal with that elevation change, whether running uphill or downhill. Of course, if you're running uphill, then you can be a little bit bolder on the brakes. If you're running downhill, you have to be a little bit early on the brakes by comparison, and it's a long charge out of turn 12 all the way up to the start-finish line to do it all again. And thank you to Sim Racing Wiki, of course, for our circuit maps, as always, and we'll be riding on board with some of our drivers in the qualifying session to give you a real feel for what it's like to drive around this Brazilian circuit. As we look from our circuit to our rules, it is the case, of course, we have our standard rule, whereby our drivers will have their car fuel loads restricted to 43 litres for this round. This is an open setup series, of course. Our drivers bring their choice of setup to the circuit. They try to set up the car as best as possible to take on the circuit, and you can imagine here they'll need quite a balanced setup on the car. They won't be focusing on straight line speed, nor will they be focusing on particularly cornering. It is the case they'll need to find a mixture of the two, because this circuit has a little bit of everything. Indeed, it is seen as a typical balance of performance circuit in major esports series. Now, as for the Alpha race itself, just to give those of you a reminder at home, it is the case there is a mandatory pit stop in which drivers must take on fuel. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 9 or more instant points. If they take it all the way up to 16, they'll be disqualified from the race, and the following bonus points are available come the end of tonight. 1 point for overall pole position, so it is the case whoever is on pole of the overall grid, regardless of alpha or delta status, they will take that additional point. 1 point for the fastest lap over the race distance. 1 point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instants accrued by a driver over the course of the entire round. 1 point for leading a lap, you only have to lead 1 lap in the race, and 1 point for the Naked Aggression Award, which is most overtakes by a driver over the course of the round. Well, those are rules and regulations, but I know what you're all here for. It is the case you're here for the racing, and as we make our way back to the circuit, we only have a limited number of drivers making their way on around right now, and we do see Micah Hendricks making his way across that timeline and charging up towards turn number 1. We still do have 6 minutes left of this final warm-up practice session. Of course, our drivers being given a 3 3/4 hour window in order to be able to do their final warm-up and practice before going racing. That is the standard, of course, of the Alpha Touring Challenge, in order to give our drivers plenty of time to join the iRacing lobby and get set to go racing. And speaking of getting set to watch the racing, we see Jon Lauzon there in the YouTube chat saying hello, it should be a gooder. Indeed, we are hoping for it to be a good around the racing. John, I agree with you there. And this circuit, of course, no stranger to creating fantastic racing, albeit you could argue no stranger to end of season drama, particularly in Formula 1. And we'll some of you immediately may be thinking all the way back to, if my memory serves me correctly, the 2007 Is That Timo Glock moment, or more nicknamed Is That Glock moment, because of the fact we alluded his first name from the description there, and it is the case that Micah Hendricks making his way up towards turn number 8 at this point. Well, he won't be thinking about an Is That Glock moment, because this is not the season finale, and we're not going to be expecting to have any rain or changeable conditions which involve rain. Rain is on the cards to come to iRacing at some point. We do know that from the development team of iRacing, but it is the case it's not here at the moment. We are expecting cloudy, if not somewhat sunshiny skies as our drivers make their way on round here over the course of the racing today. But this circuit, of course, is no stranger to that drama towards the end of a championship. And that's just one example in the world of Formula One, but you name it around here. That's why this circuit is much loved by drivers and also by fans, because it does create some very unpredictable races, and you can never quite truly know what's going to happen until the drivers get to that checkered flag come the very end. And qualifying, is it going to be important here? That is a key question, of course. We are expecting qualifying to be somewhat important at this circuit for the fact you can overtake. There's plenty of overtaking opportunities at the Interlagos circuit, most prominently into turn number 1, of course, with that long run out of turn 12 all the way up the hill onto what is essentially the kinked straight all the way across the start-finish line up towards turn number 1. And of course, you do have the switchback sequence of turns 2 and 3 before running all the way down the Repro Aposta straight towards turn number 4, the Reta Aposta straight, I should say. And then as our drivers make their way into turn 4, that's another major overtaking opportunity. After which, the run through turn 5 up the hill towards turns 6 and 7. That is an overtaking opportunity if our drivers get a good run out of turns 4 and 5. But then things calm down a little bit as we see Jermaine Warren making his way through what is the sequence of corners. The sequence of corners of turns 9 through to 12 here as he comes into the very tricky Junção corner of turn number 12, and there could be some overtakes there, but it does require drivers to be a bit bold on the brakes to do so. And to be fair, when you're running in the Honda Civic Type R, you can be very bold with it on the brakes. It does have the strongest of brakes, or at least based on the balance of performance that this race was done under, because we should point out that it was the case that very recently, just after this race occurred, the iRacing had a major balance of performance update introduced with regards to the touring car racing at class cars. So it is the case that when we come back for round number 10, we'll be expecting to see that balance of performance may definitely shake up the field in terms of which cars are hot and which are not. And so far over the course of the season, it really has been the case that the Hyundai Elantras, and we can see here Paul Mikolajczyk bringing his way out of the pit lane here through turn number 4, out of the pit lane, and all the way, sorry, turn number 3 I should say, and all the way down to turn number 4, getting my numbers correct. But it is the case the American driver here running the car that seems to have been the strongest of the cars over the course of the season so far. It's been the strongest on one lap pace, and also for the opening half of the race distance, it's only been the case that whether it's ambient conditions being very high in terms of temperature, alternatively a longer race distance, that's where the car started to fall apart as that tyre degradation has gradually built up over the course of time and really cost the car some pace late on in the race. And we did see that, to be fair, at Imola in particular, where we had absolutely soaring track temperatures, plus also we had the feature race, the 60-minute race, and those two put together really hurt the Elantra massively. And we are wondering how it will get on here today, because this circuit is quite aggressive with regards to tyre wear, in the fact there's a number of heavy braking zones, a lot of camber corners as well, which means the risk of understeer on those front tyres, and that could really take the tyres apart. And the Elantras may be vulnerable here compared to the Hondas in particular, which are very safe on the tyres. And we can see that Eric Statz's livery has not loaded correctly. That should be loaded properly when we transition over to qualifying. We do apologise for that. These little technical issues always do occur, of course, but we can always iron them out as time goes on. And then we do have the Audi Rs3, of course, the one car that has not been the popular car over the course of the season, just has not been there on the pace compared to the other cars. Fernando Takahashi representing the Audi manufacturer here today, and what is going to be the number 998 car. And as he makes his way down through turn number 9 right now, he'll be looking to try and do his utmost here to do well and try to prove everybody wrong with regards to the Audi. And to be fair, Takahashi, indeed a number of our Audi drivers, time and time again proving others wrong and putting in some solid performances, and we expect the Delta driver to do the same today. As he makes his way through turn number 11, we're going to briefly cut away, ladies and gentlemen, to transition over to qualifying. We do need to make a brief adjustment to our replay file that we're watching here, so that way qualifying is not spoiled for you in terms of those lap times that come in from our drivers, and we get it all as the lap times come in. So we'll be back very shortly to bring you the qualifying session. Don't go anywhere, we're not going to be too far away. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for qualifying here at the Interlagos circuit, and as all our drivers make the way out of the pit lane very rapidly indeed, it is the case they've got 15 minutes to set their best possible qualifying time here. And of course, you can see on our timing tab there on the left-hand side of the screen, we have no times recorded. It is the case we are using a workaround here to make sure you don't see those qualifying times. And I should point out, as your host and commentator, I do not know what happens in qualifying nor in the race. I've made sure to avoid any spoilers, so it is the case that it is absolutely raw to me. And we do advise any of you who participate in this race, if you are tuning in right now and have access to chat, no spoilers please, to keep it nice and fresh for myself and all the viewers at home who are tuning in right now and expecting some fantastic racing indeed. But no qualifying times on the board there, so we're going into this qualifying session blind, and that way we'll have to wait and see who comes out on top. But as our drivers make the way on around here, it is the case, as we said earlier, qualifying is going to be critical here in the fact that if you can position yourself well in qualifying, you can go racing. There's plenty of overtaking opportunities, but of course overtaking opportunities are a double-edged sword. If you're able to make overtakes, it's all well and good, but overtaking and battling will cost you time over the race distance, and that could really upset the rhythm of some drivers, particularly if they're trying to aim very high indeed. But as they do make the way on around right now, we do have one driver making his way towards the end of the lap at this point in time, and we are just trying to find them on the screen at the moment. We can't seem to find them at the moment. Our driver who's making the way towards the end of their lap, it is one of our Alpha drivers, and it seems as though they're not quite on our timing screens at the moment. And I believe in fact here comes Matt Shepka. We've been able to find him, and it will be Matt Shepka who gives us our first flying lap of this qualifying session as we ride on board here with the Honda driver for his opening flying lap. Then across the timeline, then down towards turn one, braking at the 50-metre board and coming all the way down the gearbox to second gear, rolling into left-hander for bring the car into the middle of the road and onwards to the apex of turn number 2. Immediately bring the car over to left for turn number 3 here, through what is the Curva del Sol, and as he gradually makes his way off apex there, lets the car coming out and charges full throttle all the way down the Retro Aposta straight here, up towards turn number 4. That's the first sector complete. Looking to his right for the brake mark, the 100-metre board there, coming down the gearbox to third gear, rolling into the apex of turn 4, gets back on the throttle, using the runoff area there in order to settle the car on the exit of 4 through the kink of 5, and now up the hill towards turn number 6 here. The very tricky double right-hander of 6 and 7. He'll look for his mark on the left-hand side, the marshal's post, brake down a gear to 4th gear, down to 3rd as he clears turn 6, and then brings the car to the apex of 7, and then stamps on the throttle to bring it out to the left-hand side before braking all the way down to 2nd gear for turn number 8, and cutting as much of the apex as possible before heading into turn number 9. Now as he makes his way through 9 there, very late apex on turn number 9, deceptive corner, and as he accelerates out 9 up into the slightest corner of the circuit, turn number 10, coming all the way down to 2nd gear. We may see some drivers have to come down to 1st if they're battling into the corner, as he exits out now through Magulio corner at turn number 11, flat out through here as he rolls his way down the hill, and as he heads into a Juncal corner at turn number 12. Of course, we've got a lot of run-off area which our drivers are allowed to use to open up corner apex, rolling through in 2nd gear, and now it's all about being on the throttle the way to the end as he charges up the hill and towards the start finish line here, through the kink of 13, through the kink of 14, and through the kink of 15 very shortly as he comes through the left-hander here, and as he comes to a line, he's going to stay over to the left as much as possible in order to cut the circuit. He comes to the timeline and what's going to be our opening benchmark lap. It's a 42.637 for Matt Shepka, and as all of our drivers coming through, we can see more times coming in, and some drivers going faster on a Honda drive already, some going slower, and in particular we see Jorge Zuniga here, who returning after a spell of absence from the series. It's great to see Zuniga returning. It is the case that he is on a 42.503 in the Hyundai Veloster, and well, that is an absolutely brilliant lap there for his opening lap. But to be fair, only 1,000 faster than our Delta driver, or our Pro-Am driver of what is Connor Achatella. And Achatella really flying in that Veloster, it must be said. Absolutely delivering time and time again, but we are still expecting plenty more laps to come on the board here from drivers. Indeed, we've got half our field who have yet to set a lap, so I have to wait and see just how strong those laps are, as we see Jerome Bajulas there going faster by 3.5 tenths to take provisional pole of a 42.154 as he drifts his way into turn number 1 there in the Elantra. And as he comes on down right now, just to point out for those of you uninitiated on our timing tower, how can you tell who's an Alpha and a Delta driver? Or we should explain what that means. Alpha drivers are the equivalent of our Pro classes, and Delta driver is the equivalent of our Pro-Am class, and it is the case our blue sash drivers there, the ones with blue coloration between their position number and their name, that means they are an Alpha driver. Those with the purple pink coloration, those are our Delta drivers there, and we can see that Achatella in particular right now in P3 there, leading the way in terms of the qualifying session for our what is our Pro-Am class, or that Delta class if you will. But we've still got plenty more time to go here, 10 minutes in this qualifying session. It's Bajulas who strikes the first lap that is the fastest of everybody, but we've still got plenty of time as we do see David Bauer here making his way on through to complete another lap. The breakfast dinner driver who's looking very racy at Donington Park, let's not forget, as he makes his way on across this time. So we see Shepka jumping up to P2. More times coming on in. Can anybody go into the 41s? Oh, goodness me, they're all going into the 41s now. More times, but it's David Bauer who then takes provisional pole, this time by half a tenth over Achatella. But Achatella responding well as well. It is looking as though here many a driver could be on that pole position right now, definitely on that front row, as the lap times continue to pile on in, and it is the case that Bauer right now only half a tenth faster than Achatella, who in turn is only half a tenth faster than Jorge Zuniga as he makes his way down towards turn number 4. But as he does Logan McKenzie as well, it is the case the yellow flag motorsport driver that absolutely delivering in this qualifying session. We've seen a real change of form. We talked about this at Donington, and it really continued at Donington Park. It has been the case since the European Tour. It's one of the situations whereby the yellow flag motorsports driver, who was really shadowed by his teammate of Robert Abrams, he's really come to the foray as the number 4 driver here. And whilst it is Robert Abrams who is the championship leader still, McKenzie has definitely been shown a lot of pace. It's almost as if it has clicked in that Elantra, and since it's clicked, there's no stopping him or holding the man back. But where is our championship leader going into this round? Here is Robert Abrams, and we'll give you an update on the championship standings after today's race. It is the case our number 14 driver who made the switch to the Veloster for Donington Park. Did it work out for him? It worked out to an extent. He had a lot of pace, but he was involved in a couple of instances which really upset his momentum in certain races, and therefore today it could be the case he's got to try and recover that momentum. If he's not able to recover it today, then it could really hurt his championship hopes, given the fact that we are getting closer and closer towards the season finale, and the gap between him and main pursuers Jon Lauzon and what is our driver as well of Drone Bajulas, that gap is gradually coming down, and with it the risk of losing out on that championship lead is only becoming ever more present for Abrams. He heads to the timeline here in the Hyundai Veloster, and what's he going to be achieved in this time around as he makes his way across the line, heading on through, and this will be at the end of the first half of the qualifying session. Crossing the line, he brings the car over to the side there to go on to another lap. He's not happy with that one. Indeed, that was a warm-up lap. In fact, he makes his way on down and around. But speaking of other drivers heading on around, we do look from one of our Hyundai Veloster drivers, I should say, to one of our Hyundai Elantra drivers here, and that is Paul Nikolajczyk, as he makes his way all the way up through turns 13 and 14 and onwards towards 15 very shortly. And we're going to ride on board with him for a delta lap around the circuit. We rode on board with our Alpha driver, of course, of Shepka, and now we ride on board with Nikolajczyk as he heads across the timeline, and where he's going to bring it over to the left here, thinking he's going to go faster. Doesn't improve compared to his previous best, but now he heads into turn 1, breaking that 50-metre board and rolling the car on the brakes. Goes a little bit deep, and you can see if he goes deep into turn 1, what it means is his line is compromised into 2, and that unsettles the car for turn 3. And that's the thing about the very tricky turn 1 through to 3 sequence, whereby it's known as the Senna S turns 1 and 2, named after, of course, the famous Brazilian driver of Ayrton Senna, no longer with us, may he rest in peace. But it is the case that Ayrton Senna, of course, it took him multiple attempts to win at his home circuit. I think it was on the 8th attempt, unless I'm very much mistaken. Almost fated never to win here, but he won in the end despite a gearbox which was breaking in his McLaren, and in the end bring home the win. And well, who can bring up the win home here today? Of course, the big question. But focus on Nikolajczyk's lap right now, running his way through turns 6 and 7. You can see there the car understeering a little bit beyond 6, taking a bit too much apex curve, and that unsettled the car and caused it to roll deep into turn 7. Brought it back together, but this is not the happiest of laps from our driver as he makes his way through turn number 9. When he gets to turn 9, hooked up very nicely indeed as he now makes his way up towards turn number 10. Now breaking into the hairpin S corner here, you can see how this one is on camera in terms of actually it slopes towards the apex curve. But as he heads through 11 here, notice how the road is just literally curving away from the car as he makes his way over the apex curve. They're absolutely hugging the apex curve to get the extra rotation as he rolls his way into turn number 12 into Junkel corner as he heads over the apex curve, cutting a huge amount of the apex. He's got to be careful, of course. They can use a lot of that apex curve at 12, but too much of it and they'll get an off-track limit warning. And as he makes his way through turns 13 and 14 and on towards 15, it's been a slight improvement with regards to what was the second subsector as he heads towards the timeline here. What's it going to be as he crosses that line? Will it be an improvement for what is the number 1 car driver? No, he does not improve in the end. He's still got time to go, but no improvement this time around. But as he makes his way on down the hill, we look from him to Fernando Takahashi, of course, our unicorn in the mix of the Hondas and the Hyundais, the one Audi taking to the circuit today. And as he makes his way through turn 7 and up into 8, we can expect this Audi to be very strong in the run down at where's the Retta Acosta straight, and also with regards to what is the run out of turn number 12 all the way up to the start-finish line, given the Audi is so strong on the straights, but in the corners it may suffer a little bit. But we've got the cloud coming over, and that will help the Audi. Of course, the Audi very sensitive to engine temperature, in particular hot circuits and hot track temperatures can cause the car to overheat to a degree, but the Audi Rs3 driver here I think will be absolutely happy with the fact we've got quite a bit of cloud coming over the circuit, and that means that the temperature will cool down a little bit or not escalate higher as he makes his way through the left-hander. And we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Daddy's Got a Race, or Fernando Takahashi himself, and I hope you're doing well, Fernando, and well, we look forward to seeing how you do get on today, as we do see you making your way up towards what is turn number 15 right now, and heading towards the end of this lap, but not an improving lap this one. Indeed, it's an out lap from Takahashi, and he's getting himself set to go once again here as he heads across the timeline. And let's watch him from the exterior perspective as he makes his way on around and see if we can find out where the Audi's not quite hooking it up by comparison. Now, we do have a new debutant here today, and that is Andrew Trickett, who's not out on circuit currently. He's based in the pit lane. I do believe also Micah Hendricks in the pit lane and not taken to the field for qualifying. I think that may be a penalty of some description, where it's the case that Hendricks just not able to get the car out onto the field. But with regards to Andrew Trickett, I'm not exactly sure what's happened with regards to his car. We did have him briefly out in the practice session, but he's not taken to the field in this qualifying session. Hopefully it's nothing too major, and we can see the pair of them out on the grid, albeit they'll be starting from the back. But we do hope to have both of them making their way to the grid for an 18-car race, as we do see here Takahashi making his way up towards turn number 6. But he's got a bit of traffic ahead of him, and in fact that is going to be Robert Abrams there, who stays as wide as possible, and Takahashi goes deep into turn 6 but brings it nicely to turn number 7. I do wonder whether Takahashi is struggling a little bit with turn 6 with the car, in terms of just not wanting to rotate in. Instead, he's focusing all of his effort on the turn 7 apex by comparison, as he makes his way out of turn 9 up towards turn number 10, and as he rolls his way into the right hand here. Well, in terms of laps so far, he did improve in subsector 2, improving to a 14.81, and he's making his way towards the end of subsector 3 right now. In fact, he's already cleared subsector 3. It was not a personal best, and as he makes his way through the final major corner now, it's all about getting on that throttle as soon as possible. But he gets on there a bit too early. You can see they're running wide, and I think that's going to be a compromised lap, with the fact he put 2 wheels beyond the exit curve onto the grass, and I think that'll be counted as an invalidated lap. Although, to be fair, the track limits here at Interlagos are a little bit frugal, but taking a bit of grass there as well, as he makes his way out to 14 on towards 15, and Takahashi coming to the timing line. Well, as he crosses it, it's not an improvement, and he's got it all to do again. At 2.5 minutes left in his qualifying session, not long to go, and right now the big question is, can anybody improve to beat David Bowers' lap time, which was a 41.65. We saw him set it in the Packer cars in the slipstream pack, and well, meanwhile Gus Blondell here, P12 compared to Achtella's lap that's in P2, and not able to get anywhere near the 41s. He's in the 42s, and a 42.8 is his best, and he just set that lap. And I think for Blondell at this point, it's more about focusing on what he can do in the race, because Achetella is absolutely in a world of his own right now with that P2 lap. If it stands, of course, which I do believe it is going to stand, and when I say that, what I mean is, unfortunately, due to limitations of replay racing files, it is the case where we're not allowed to see exactly where a lap was invalidated due to track limits. We have to guess what laps are, but we'll have that confirmed when we do go to the grid. But I think that Achetella and also Bowers' laps are going to stand, and if that is the case, those are phenomenal laps, as we see Blondell making his way across that timeline and on to another lap here. This will be his final lap in this qualifying session, but he is running out of time to get any further up the field. But to be fair, we have seen quite a rivalry building between Blondell, Mikolajczyk, Warren, Statzer, and also some of the other drivers in that field, including Daniel Sedino, who's not in attendance today. Takahashi not quite in that mix, that P2 battle within the Delta class at the moment, it would seem, but we have got a lot of drivers really vying to be the best of the rest outside of Achetella, who seems to be in a world of his own. And as Blondell makes his way on down out to turns 4 and 5 here and up the hill towards 6, it is the case he wants to be at the head of that pack. And right now, if he qualifies P12, it is the case he'll be at the head of the Delta pack when they go racing here very shortly. But we do look from Blondell to David Bauer, and making his way on to his final qualifying lap here. I do believe we will get the benefit of overtime in this qualifying session, unless I'm very much mistaken. Overtime being that when we get to that 15-minute clock mark, it is the case anybody who's on the lap is permitted to finish the lap. And speaking of finishing their laps, we see Logan McKenzie here, currently P4. He'll be lined up on our second row of the grid, and as he makes his way through turn number 14 and very shortly to turn number 15, we didn't improve in subsectors 2, 3 or 4, but he has improved in subsector 1. And as he comes to the timeline here, will it be an improvement? improvement from P4. No, he's going to stay wide here and decide to go once again on a 44.866 that time around. But as he comes on across, we see James Carr in the rear of the picture, the other breakfast for dinner driver, being outshone by his teammate here today. But James Carr and Bauer both really absolutely hungry and salivating at the prospect of going racing at Donington Park and putting in stellar performances. And right now, Will Carr, as he goes on to his final qualifying lap here, what can he do? As we see, it's the case that McKinsey aborts the lap. He's not happy, and he's going to be P4 at best as he gets out the way there. And we ride on board with fast charging at James Carr as he makes his way into turn number 4. Now rolling his way on through. Of course, this qualifying session over in terms of drivers who've yet to go on to their final lap. But as he makes his way on around through turn number 5 and uphill in the Elantra here, we'll have to wait and see, of course, that brake bias so far towards the rear brakes, giving as much rotation as possible into turn 6 and 7. Hooks up 6 very nicely. In fact, gets that transition between 6 and 7 absolutely nailed spot on there. You can see let the car creep slightly away from the apex of 7, only to come back to it at the right time. And as he makes his way through turn number 9, it is the case of looking hooked up right now. In terms of improving, hasn't improved in subsectors 1 and 2 to be fair, but as he heads into turn number 10, he brakes way too early for the corner, and I think that is going to be an aborted lap. They're braking about 25 metres too early, a bit too much enthusiasm there on the brakes. Logan McKinsey comes on through. He won't be improving either, given the fact he aborted the lap, and David Bauer, who is parked himself up on the Retro Aposta straight at turn number 3, on the exit of turn number 3, in his case, he won't be improving. So that is qualifying complete effectively, and it will be David Bauer who takes pole position for the Alpha class and overall, and he will be joined on that front row, we believe, by the Delta pole sitter of Connor Achatella, his highest qualifying position in the season so far, P2. And well, I think that just goes to show you how far he has come since the start of the season, where he set the pace at the start of the season, but he's been absolutely delivering round after round as we now wait to go to the grid for our one and only race today. Well, as we get the transition over, let's take you through that grid for 60 minutes of racing here at the Interlagos circuit. This is how they line up. David Bauer takes pole position for round number 9 in the Alpha Touring Change Season 5 on iRacing. The breakfast for dinner driver in the end, taking pole by a half a tenth ahead of Connor Achatella there in P2. They then have Jorge Zuniga and Logan McKinsey on row at number 2 behind them, the two Alpha drivers. We were Jon Lauzon and James Carr behind on row number 3. Matt Shepka and Francois Shink on row number 4, the Torque Racing driver having a good qualifying session in the Honda Civic Type R, placing himself well. And then we do have Jerome Bajulaz and Robert Abrams there, lined up on the 5th row. And Robert Abrams not able to hook it up in the Hyundai Veloster. We'll have to wait and see how the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver gets on when we get underway with the green. Then Aaron Lars starts P11 on row number 6, joined by Paul Mikolajczyk in the end, starting P12. He was able to make it the best of rest in the Delta class. And then we do have behind him Gus Blondell and Jermaine Warren, followed by Eric Statzer and Fernando Takahashi on row number 8. And then we'll have Micah Hendricks and Andrew Trickett line up last but not least on that final row of the grid in their respective classes. Not able to put qualifying times in due to, I believe, technical issues with both cars. And we'll have to wait and see whether they're able to make it to the grid for our one and only race today. The gridding process is still underway at the moment, and we do look to the blimp camera here, and it is the case you can see our drivers as we clear what is there, the grid out the way, and instead look to the grid. A little bit obscured by the foliage there, and in fact we look a little bit closer down. And we can see we've got still some gaps in the grid where our drivers are just getting themselves set and finalising their setups, putting the right amount of fuel in the car, of course, as per the restriction. And it is the case also perhaps changing their setup slightly for the race compared to qualifying. In qualifying, you might want a bit more of an aggressive car, a car that's going to take a bit more life out of the tyres, whereas in the race, you might want a car that's a little bit more stable. But it is the case the gridding process is complete, and now we'll wait the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 9 here at the Autodromo Carlos Pace. And as they make their way down towards turn number 1, here's the case that David Bauer gets a good start, as meanwhile Achatella gets a poor start with Zuniga going around the outside already. But he won't be too fast by that, but as all of our drivers coming down the hill through one, we can see some drivers there on cold tyres and losing the rear end slightly, but they all safely make the way on through the centre S for the first time, asking Eric Stats here on a charge. He makes his way through turn number 3 and trying to gain places, not able to do so. But a little bit further up there we can see Paul Mikolajczyk in a battle with Aaron Lyle and Robert Abrams as they come charging down towards turn number 4, down the Retro Aposta for the first time of asking, and into the braking zone they go, and we can see Francois Shink here caught up behind. Where's the combination of Bajulaz and Shepka? Shepka goes wide and onto the runoff area. As they come through turn number 5, it's now the case that we'll see all our Delta drivers come up behind this battle as Robert Abrams tries to regain the place he lost at the start of the race. Battling side by side with Shepka into turn number 6 as they roll their way through the right hand here. No change at the moment. Abrams is going to try and hold it all the way around the outside here into turn number 8. This is brave stuff from Robert Abrams, and well, he's going to have the inside if he can hook this up into turn number 9, and he gets it done. Does the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver into the position there, and meanwhile behind we see Aaron Lahr trying to go round the outside on turn number 9 versus Mikolajczyk down into turn 10. They break, and as they do, Aaron Lahr holds the position versus the Delta driver here, and Mikolajczyk right now is under pressure from Gus Blondell as they head down through turn number 11. But as they do, Micah Hendricks tries to squeeze up the inside, and he gets the move done there. He does into P at number 13 as he now makes his way into Juncal corner. But as they head out the final major corner for the first time of asking, up the hill they charge. You can see it is the case now. Everybody starting to form into a line here, ball in the toe. Unfortunately, we're hearing that Andrew Trickett not able to make his way to the grid, unfortunately, but this is how they are as they cross the timeline. It is David Bauer who leads, followed by Jorge Zuniga in P2, followed by Connor Achatella P3, James Carr P4, Jon Lauzon P5, Logan McKenzie P6, a little bit further back from the top 5, Jerome Virgilio's P7, followed by Francois Shink P8, then we've got Robert Abrams P9, Matt Shepka P10, being hotly pursued by Aaron Lahr in P11, then we have Mikolajczyk in P12, followed by Hendricks P13, August Blondell P14, Fernando Takahashi P15, Eric Statzer P16, Jermaine Warren P17, Jermaine Warren with the off track there at turn 1, and Andrew Trickett's making his way out of the pit lane. As we understand it, they've got the car repaired, but he's going to be multiple laps down. But meanwhile, we look from the back of the field to the front of the field here, and it is the case, oh goodness me, and there's contact there between what's James Carr and the rear of Achatella, just getting a little bit too hot on the brakes there, James Carr, and tapping the rear of the Delta driver as they make the way up the hill. Meanwhile, a bit further back as Lauzon looks at a move, it is the case. A bit further back we can see that Micah Hendricks battling with Mikolajczyk. Oh goodness me, there's contact between the two of them as they come into turn number 6, but it's the case they both survived the contact, and I think Micah Hendricks getting a little bit fruitful with the width of the car as they make the way into turn number 8, but it's fair racing, and to be fair, these touring cars can take a beating as they make the way through turn 8 down into 9, and as they do, Mikolajczyk's not giving this up, and to be fair, he doesn't need to give it up, given the fact that these drivers are all battling for overall points. Those points will feed into the overall standings. There's no class point assignments here as they make the way through turn number 10, but Hendricks gets the move done in the end. He's up by 5 places so far since the start, a great start, and speaking of a great start, it's the case that you started this broadcast in terms of tuning at a great time, Sweelerb, in the Twitch chat, starting right when the racing got underway. Hope you're doing well, my friend, but as we come back to the racing right now, it is the case that Micah Hendricks continued to gain ground here after what was a qualifying session he didn't take part in, but meanwhile, David Bauer, your race leader, trying to hold off Jorge Zuniga here as they make the way to the timeline, completing lap number 2, and as they make the way into the braking zone this time around, we ride on board the gearbox here, and well, David Bauer under major pressure from that Veloster. We get a face-off, almost taking the camera off the rear of the braking in the driver's car, and as they make the way down through turn 2 into 3, it is the case that David Bauer gets the better run out of the corners. We're hearing that Fernando Takahashi's made his way past Eric Statzer for P15. A little bit off camera, but as they make the way down towards turn number 4 this time around, well, we see Zuniga look to the inside. He's getting closer and closer into the braking zone they go. No way through at this point in time, but you can imagine Zuniga is definitely thinking about this move. He's trying to get it set up. Meanwhile, it is the case as we look to our battle for P15 here. Fernando Takahashi defends versus Eric Statzer as they make the way into the left-hander. Well, you can see, oh goodness me, and Statzer goes a little bit deep, but to be fair, Takahashi gave him the space and Statzer understeered a little bit deep into the corner, and that's been, look how much it's battling, it's causing them to fall. Of a P14 driver, Gus Blondell, they've fallen a long way back, and it is not working out for the two of them right now. Although, to be fair, we're getting some brilliant racing between the pair, it must be said, and they're effectively battling for what is P4 in the Delta class at this point in time as they make the way down through turn number 9 and head up towards 10. But meanwhile, Hendricks trying to gain another scalp here within this class, going up the inside of what is Aaron Lahr into turn number 10. Lahr's going to hold the inside through 11. This is brave stuff from Hendricks. As you can see that Aaron Lahr tries to compress him on the outside. Hendricks tries to give himself space. There's contact between the two of them. Aaron Lahr up the inside into Juncal corner as they head up the hill this time around. It's going to be a drag race, and we know that the Elantra is the stronger of the two in terms of acceleration all the way up to top gear, and its top gear is a little bit more powerful compared to the Veloster, but the Veloster also has some great acceleration and great brakes on it, and the Elantra of course does have that weakness of tyre wear over the course of the race distance, which Hendricks will look to exploit versus Aaron Lahr as they make their way across the timeline. Into turn number 1 they go, and Hendricks lay on the brakes, but Aaron Lahr says I can do that too. They go side by side through turn 1, through 2 they go. Aaron Lahr goes a little bit deep understeering onto the grass and rejoins just behind Micah Hendricks, and it took an absolute absolute plethora of corners. Then Hendricks gets ahead, but for how long? As Aaron Lahr tries to come back, we ride on board with the driver behind of Paul Mikolajczyk as they make the way down the Reproposta straight in towards turn number 4. And as they head into the... Oh, goodness me, there's contact between the two of them. Aaron Lahr and Hendricks make contact into turn number 4. And, well, in the end, it was the smallest of touches, but it caused Hendricks to turn across the front of Aaron Lahr's car. Well, they both survived the contact, but Hendricks is losing ground from all of this, and now he falls back into the clutches of an absolutely intense Delta battle for P4 in the Delta class. And you can see Eric Statzer up the inside immediately trying to put daylight between himself. Oh, and there's contact, and there's even more contact as Hendricks is turned by Takahashi, but Takahashi lifts off immediately and prevents turning the Veloster driver all the way round. But Jermaine Warren, in all of the chaos and the confusion, has gained a place versus Hendricks and Takahashi, and now is trying to go after Eric Statzer to be the best of the Hondas in their class as they make the way up towards turn number 10. As they make the way down into the right-hander here, it is the case whilst they're battling for positions further down the field. Looking further up the field, we see Francois Shink here right now caught between a rock and a hard place. Behind him, he's got the hard place, always Robert Abrams, and ahead of him, he has got the rock of his teammate from Beaver Buzz, and that is Jerome Badula as they make the way out of turn number 14 into the kink of 15. But as they come through the left-hander this time around, of course, there's a long way to go in this one, and I think a lot of our drivers in this top 8 group right now, of course, P1 through to P8 only separated by a margin of 3.5 seconds, if that. They're all focusing on doing a bit of fuel saving, doing a bit of time preservation, and trying to think how the strategy can play on out. But speaking of strategy here, Micah Hendricks' strategy has got to be go like the wind and go for hell, because right now he's got to push, given the fact that Jermaine Warren, there he's made a pass on Jermaine Warren, now he's going to look to try and get past Eric Statzer after being turned at turn number 4. It is the case in that battle of Aaron Lahr. Of course, we're not pointing the blame on Aaron Lahr. That's for the stewards to decide whose fault it was or whether both drivers were equal in that instant, and therefore it's a racing instant. But regardless, Hendricks has got it all to do right now, and he'll be absolutely trying to charge his way out the field. We know he's fast in that Veloster. We've seen it time and time again, all the way back at Fuji's when we first saw it. He's up the inside of Statzer here, and I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward move as Statzer goes a bit deep into the corner, and Eric Statzer loses the place. In fact, as he rejoins, he'll lose the place to what is Jermaine Warren as well in the middle of the pack, Racing League driver, who right now just tucking in behind and getting ahead of his Delta counterpart and gaining P4 in the Delta class, P15 overall. But as he makes his way on through the corner, it is the case we look to Connor Achatella here, who has got up his inside there. That's Jon Lauzon. Lauzon looking up the inside there into turn number 10 and making the move. And to be fair, I think I can see what Achatela's trying to do here. Achatella knows in terms of his class, he's not battling with the Alpha drivers right now in terms of pace or place on circuit, but he's staying with them and he's not trying to cost his contemporaries any time, because you can see, look at the gap that's opened up between James Carr in P3 and Lauzon in P4. It's a gap that stands now at 1.3 seconds, but in the process of this, what Achatela's hoping, I think, is that Lauzon can get closer to Carr, and then later in the race, if he can do some significant fuel saving, he may be able to jump all of them in the pits. But speaking of trying to make the jump here, David Bauer still leading this race, but look at Zuniga, look at James Carr, who's trying to help his teammate out here by trying to get into P2, and Zuniga's very aware of it at this point, and James Carr puts in the pressure on, and Zuniga gets it wrong at turn 3, puts the wheel into the grass, and as they roll the way out to the Curva del Sol onto the straight, it is the case now. It's going to be a drag race all the way down towards turn number 4. They head in the long run here, and I think James Carr's going to have the room on the inside to go over on the brakes. He goes up the inside here, they roll the way on through. Zuniga looks to the cutback, but I don't think it's going to happen, and James Carr moves up to P2, and right now Breakfast for Dinner are looking for a double podium here, and it's in the 2 top spots, which is what they love to have as they make the way to turn 6 and 7, and that's something they want on their plate in terms of points for Dinner as they make the way up towards turn 8 right now. But as they do, still plenty to come, of course. We are not even 10 minutes into the race. We're 30 seconds away from being 10 minutes into the race, but we'll still have 50 minutes after that, plus the final lap, and anything can happen here at the Interlagos circuit as they make the way all the way up towards turn number 10. But as they head on through, we can see a little bit further back here, Robert Abrams has found his way past Francois Shink in this long run of cars. And in fact, as they make their way through what is turn number 10, you can see Shink, in fact, has caught up with Robert Abrams a little bit after Abrams found his way on through. And it is the case these guys have fallen back to a degree off of the pack in front of them. But in the process, well, in fact, they haven't lost out too much. And Matt Shepka right now, whilst he started a little bit further up the order, he's lost 3 places since the start of the race. He is now starting to get a little bit closer to this top 9, which already really battling for the lead, and then Shepka's just a little bit out of arm's reach right now, but you can imagine he'll be looking to get a bit closer as time wears on, and in doing so he'll be looking for the moves to get into the top 5, but looking all the way back up towards the front of the field as they all snake train their way across the timeline. Majula's looking up the inside here, McKinsey into turn 1, McKinsey's going to give him the space as they head down through turn 2 into 3, side by side they go. Great racing respect between the pair, but look at the time it's cost them, and that's the problem. Meanwhile, in the battle to be in P4 in the Delta class, P15 overall, we can see Jermaine Warren absolutely compressing the car on the curb there at turn number 1. In fact, I think he almost clipped the wall there, and as he made his way out of the corner, he's had to back off, and Eric Statzer goes around the outside to inside through turns 1 and 2 to gain the place back. But it's definitely right now, there's battles up and down the field, you name it, it's happening. As we do see, it is the case that in our race lead battle, David Power feeling safe right now. But I think he's only feeling safe at this time because James Carr is really trying to interfere with the aspirations of Niga, and that is to try and get into that P2. But as they roll their way through turn number 8 and in towards 9, look at this from the Delta driver here, Connor Achatella, our Delta Championship leader. He's staying with Lauzon, but the key thing is as well, Lauzon has caught up to that top 3, so right now Lauzon can do the same as Achatella. They can all just simply try and fuel save behind them, and whilst everyone will be fuel saving right now, the drivers who will be really hurt by this fuel saving approach will be David Bowen, also to an extent Jorge Zuniga, given the fact they want to press on, and also David Bowen doesn't have anybody to fuel save off of in front as they make the way up the hill this time around. And that is the big quandary here, is the fact that whilst we're seeing this pack of 9 drives, in fact 10 drives now, and Shepka has really caught up to the back of this whole group, these 10 drives are all running in sequence right now. They're playing the chess game, and that key chess game is who is going to be the first to blink to come into the pits, and when they do, who's going to have to spend the longest in the pits, and everyone will want to be the last driver to have to make that long pit stop. They'll want the shortest possible pit stop, and they'll want to do it at the time that is right. And right now, nobody wants to come in because we're not deep enough into the race. And on top of that as well, if you came into the pits right now, you'd come out behind the Delta drives from P15 to P18, and that's not what you want to get caught up in, is that battle further down the field, because that can cost you some dear time. So as a result, this is why we're seeing the nature of this race, the nature of this feature race really come to life, in terms of everybody's running close together, they're jostling for position, but they're also thinking about that bigger strategy here. It's different from what we saw at Donington Park, those sprints, of course, there's no mandated pit stop. We didn't have any pit stops apart from for damage at Donington Park, but here today, the damage will be done if our drivers cannot think about the fuel saving they need to do and when to time that pit stop, and that tyre protection as well, given the fact they won't want to take on fresh tyres in the pits if they can afford to do so, because that's going to be an extra 7 seconds or so per tyre changed on the car. But as they make the way on through, we haven't seen too many passes recently. Everything does seem to have calmed down relatively so, and we can see here Shepka in P10 running behind right now and staying within reach of this top 9. Indeed, that's why we say it's the top 10 battle. But as we see, it's the case that Logan McKenzie, he just lost 2 places at the price of 1. And I think McKenzie's gone a bit deep into turn number 10, and he drops to P9 here, but he hasn't lost any time to drives in front. He has afforded Robert Abrams, his teammate, that P7 position in doing so, but perhaps he just overcooked it into 10 and had to back off the throttle through risk of running off. And I get flashbacks at turn number 10 for racing in another sim racing league on a different simulator. Got it completely wrong at turn 10 when it was an assured podium on the final lap and sent the car spinning off circuit. Indeed, turn 10 a very tricky circuit indeed as they make their way up towards turn number 1. But as they do, going on to lap number 9, David Bauer, the breakfast for dinner driver, leading this race right now. He has Zuniga right there behind him, and as we get towards the 15-minute mark at this point, the fuse is being lit. We're waiting for the powder keg to explode in terms of how the strategies will play out. We've got to be patient, and it is the case. Don't switch off the television right now. There may not be too much happening, but it is going to happen soon, and when it does, you won't want to miss it as they make their way down into 4. But as they do, we ride on board here with our Delta leader right now, the 55 driver of Achatella, as he makes his way through turn number 5 and heads up the hill. And you can see here, just running comfortably in this sequence of cars, indeed behind him by half a tenth, by half a second I should say, is Jerome Berjulaz, and in front of him by half a second is Jon Lauzon. They're all staying with arm's reach, they're all playing this game of playing it smart, saving the car and waiting for the pit stop. But of course, Achatella at this point, he would love, there's no doubt about this, he would love to take an overall win. That would be huge, given the fact that this is the first season when the Alpha Touring Challenge we have included both an Alpha or a Pro class, but as they make the way down to turn number 11, there's a mistake there from Zuniga. He goes a bit deep into turn number 10, and I think that may have been the mistake that's what was made previously by McKenzie at turn 10, and now it's come back to haunt him. But the key switch is that now James Carr guys up to P2, and can Zuniga hold on to P3, or is this going to be the domino effect here where he makes another further mistake and loses another place, or could we see Jon Lauzon see this as a sign of weakness and go for the move as they make the way down towards turn number 1? We look on from the blimp camera here as they make the way in the long charge all the way down the start-finish straight, and as they head into the corner, they're hidden briefly by the grandstand, but as they make the way under braking here, no change at the moment. Everybody stays in sequence, although you can see there James Carr getting very close to his teammate, but meanwhile Aaron Lahr, well, he's looking for the move there versus what is Auguste Blondel to try and get into P12, but right now Blondel holding him at bay, and to be fair, the two Delta drivers are Mikolajczyk and Blondel definitely showing their pace to be chasing after a top 10 finish here, albeit the gap between them and P10 driver Matt Shepka, it's a gap of 6 seconds or so. That's a lot of time to close down, but speaking of closing down, Aaron Lahr getting a bit closer here as they make the way out towards turn number 4. The Torque Racing driver looking up the inside. Well, he takes a think about it, but he doesn't commit to the move in the end, and I think he was a bit too far back to fully commit without turning the Blue Flag Motorsports driver, and instead he's had to be patient and wait his turn as the Torque Racing drivers, they make the way up towards turn number 6. But as they do, we look back towards our leaders, of course, and as they make their way through turn number 9. David Bauer, I think, trying to take some pace out of this race now and doing some fuel saving as your leader. But as they head in towards turn number 10, the question will be, will his teammate James Carr oblige, or will he decide enough's enough and try and get in front and then run them through? Of course, what they could do is try and swap the places around, so that way James Carr essentially gives his teammate a little bit of an opportunity to fuel save. They're definitely looking for that P1, P2 come the finish here, and I suspect so. There is a team's championship, of course, as well as the drivers' championship, and breakfast for dinner really on the threshold of making a huge breakthrough in that hunt to be the championship leaders. If they pull off this P1, P2 tonight, of course they won't be on the top step based on a bit of quick mental mass, but it will take them right up in contention as they make the way through the final corner here and across that timeline. And you can see spreading the cars there as David Bauer took the inside line briefly. Meanwhile, James Carr went over to the outside line, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to say to Zuniga, we're not letting you through, whether you like it or not. That's teamwork being done there. They're making the cars as wide as possible, and Zuniga instead now has to think about whether he wants to try and force a move, which if he does on one of them, he'll let the other driver break away. So if he was to try and go for the move on James Carr, I wouldn't be surprised if James Carr literally digs as deep as possible and goes defensive in that P2 position, and then Bauer just runs off into the distance, which he could so well do. And if so, that means they're guaranteed one win in the breakfast for dinner class, or the team I should say in the class. Well, they have tried to be in the class their own. We're going a bit deep there at turn number 5. It's the case of James Carr now has an ego on his outside as they make the way into turn number 6, and as they roll the way on through the long right hand at turn 6 and 7. Here's the case of Zuniga trying to go all the way around the outside. Onto the brakes he goes, but James Carr's going to make him try and outbrake him into turn number 8. It's not to be, but he's able to get alongside all the way through 9. But can James Carr now hold the line on exit here at turn 9? He's given the space from Zuniga. Brilliant racing between the two of them. And as they make their way into turn 10, James Carr definitely right now playing that defensive rear guard for his teammate as they make their way into turn number 11. And you can see behind how now everybody is getting concertinaed together in this top 10, and therefore there's a little bit of frustration bubbling here, I feel, that Connor Achatella right now has. Jerome Bajulas very close behind him. Bajulas, I think, wants to get on through because he's got brother Abrams, who's right now itching to get past the Elantra. It's the Veloster drivers. They make the way out to 12 and up the hill through 13, 14 and 15. As they roll the way on through, you can definitely see James Carr taking that defensive line, and already his teammate is now a second. There's James Carr into the pits, and I think that's track limit. Surely he's not pitting this early for a pit stop. If he is, that is going to be a bold strategic statement right now. I think that might be a drive-through. We'll give you confirmation as soon as we possibly can as they make the way on down, but as they roll the way down the hill through the Center S and into the Curva del Sol. It's the case that Jorge Zuniga now has a huge opportunity to try and hunt down our race leader. As they make their way down the Retro Aposta straight this time around, on what is the 12th time of asking, you can see how just that little bit of space being afforded to David Bauer is critical. And James Carr, I can confirm it was a drive-through penalty. It is the case. He's had to come on in and now make his way back and out. He'll come out in P16 right towards the back of the field, as Jermaine Warren as well has also come on in. I believe that is for a drive-through penalty as they roll the way through turns 6 and 7 at this point. We do look to Paul Mikolajczyk, who has been passed by Aaron Lahr. In fact, Aaron Lahr has found his way past both of the Delta drivers, and we can see here it's the case Hendricks up the inside on Mikolajczyk as they make the way through 6 and 7. He's chasing after Aaron Lahr, and as they roll the way into the braking zone here for turn number 8, Auguste Blondel looks up the inside of Mikolajczyk, and of course these guys fighting for class position as well as overall position. And as they roll the way into 9, he can't find his way on through as we ride on board here with what is the Delta driver as he makes his way up towards turn number 10. Now rolling his way through the right-hander here, having to play the patience game, not close enough to consider a move on the inside into 10, as we do see Hendricks there looking to the inside of Aaron Large a bit further up the road, not able to get it done in before Juncal corner, and in fact having to wait as well as they roll the way into turn number 12. All four drivers are cutting as much of the apex curve as they can possibly demand of themselves, and as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 13, it is the case. Running through 14 now is one of those cases whereby all running in this long line. Will any of them here have to come on in? Will it be the case that the track limits are coming to haunt them? Will we see Aaron Lahr coming on in very quickly, and Lahr ducking in at the last possible moment, and in fact making his way into his pit box here? Perhaps it's the case that these are some very early pit stops and they're deciding to go early here, given the fact they want to give themselves track position. Well, Aaron Lahr makes that pit stop, and meanwhile Robert Abrams, well, as he makes his way down this back straight, down towards turn number 4 once again, it is a case now he has got right behind him Francois Shink, and in fact Abrams under major pressure from Shink as they head through 5. But rolling the way up the hill and up towards turn number 6 they climb. It is the case that Robert Abrams here does not want to fall out of touch with Jerome Bajulas, neither does Shink, to be fair, and I think that's why Shink's putting that pressure on, but he's not putting it on by the pounds. He's being quite light in his approach, like a feather in terms of the pressure, if you want a relative comparator rather than a ton of bricks. It is the case here. Shink's just trying to get the move along message through to Abrams to say, look, I need you to close up a little bit to Bajulas, otherwise I'm going to have to consider making that move because we're losing time. And that's the thing, when you're in these long trains as well, you have to be smart about how you approach the driver in front. If you feel they're costing you time, and it is the case you're all trying to run to fuel save off of one another and run in this train, it is the case you may want to just flash your lights, or alternatively you can try and put your nose down the inside briefly into a corner, albeit not fully committing to the move, but trying to get that message to the driver in front. Look, I'm faster than you at this point, let me through so we can all stay in that group. Of course, it's almost as if you're forming temporary alliances at this point in the race. We're 22 minutes clear, we've still got 38 minutes plus the final lap to go, but in terms of those pit stops, we can tell you that Aaron Lahr has definitely served a pit stop. Meanwhile, for what was James Kahn, he has not served a pit stop as we're to understand it. So it is the case that with the pit stop being made by Aaron Lahr, he is one to watch for the simple reason that now he may be the man on a mission to jump all the way up into this top 10 fight, given he'll have clear space on track. You can see him there on the circuit map in P16. It is the case making his way in towards turn number 12. He's got plenty of space on circuit. Will anybody react to that very early pit stop from Aaron Lahr, or will everyone continue to proceed as planned based on their pre-built strategy going into this race? But as we look to the front of this field, it is David Bauer, right now the breakfast or dinner driver, where he's definitely not able to take his breakfast easy in terms of those points right now. It is the case he'll be trying to snack on those points for the race win, but only after the race. There's nothing granted as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, in the fact that he has got Harry Zuniga right behind him, and to be fair to Zuniga, the privateer, he is keeping so much pressure on, and we have missed seeing him on circuit, it must be said. There's a bit of contact there on the back of David Bauer, and Jon Lauzon dives to the inside there, and that was very smart from the Canadian, in the fact he saw what was happening in front of him and immediately reacted. And meanwhile, it is the case that we can see that Achatella here still behind Bajulas. Bajulas took a quick swing as an eager to try and gain that P3. Nothing occurred in the end. It was the case he stays P4 as they make their way down through turn number 11, but as they roll the way on down, it is definitely the case that Jon Lauzon there, the opportunist in the making, gaining that P2. And as we ride on board here with Zuniga, you can definitely feel there's a bit of frustration. I think he just got cooked up a little bit too close behind David Bauer, and in the process cost himself that position, but he hasn't lost down the overall scheme of things. He's right there in P3 still as they make the way through the kink of 15 and on towards the timeline as they head through as close as possible to those tyres where the pit entry is. Nubbin peeling to the pits right now, but Zuniga looking up the inside potentially into turn 1, thinks better of it, instead stays behind him. You can see having to fight with the steering wheel under braking into turn 1. That's that rear brake bias of the car unsettling the rear of the car, and it gives them that extra rotation but leads to an unstable rear end under heavy braking. And as they make their way into turn number 4, very shortly, of course, running down the rest of Foster Straight, you can see Zuniga getting the better run out of the corner as they make their way on down. He's trying to look for a free wide here as they head on through. Jon Lauzon getting the better run, however, versus David Bauer, and he's up the inside. David Bauer not fighting this one too hard, and we have a new race leader. It's Jon Lauzon, but he goes deep out of turn number 4, and as a result, he'll be required to give the place back as he makes his way out of 5. And Dover gains 1 place. Hazen gains a place as well as they make the way into turn number 6. And well, what was a major opportunity for Jon Lauzon has gone so wrong, but he's thinking about coming back here into turn number 8 versus Aniga. But to be fair, I think he would be smart to calm it down for a brief moment here. I can appreciate he wants to go racing, much like everybody, but that little mistake should not make him see red right now. And indeed, Jon Lauzon, a very cool temper there behind the wheel of the Elantra. He stays behind and makes his way into turn number 10. But you can see how all the way from P1 to P9 right now, they're all running together with Shepka here in P9. This is brilliant to see the top 9 separated by a margin of only 3 seconds, if that, as they head down for 11 and into 12. And as they make their way into Juncal Corner right now, these are the closest battles on circuit. Things have calmed down elsewhere with Augusta Blondel ahead of Paul Mikolajczyk in the hunt for P2 in the Delta class. That's P11 overall, but they are separated by 1 second right now. We could see the 2 drivers come back together in short order, but we are waiting at this time to see exactly who is going to flinch first in this long train of 9 drivers all battling for the win here as they make their way down to turn number 1 on lap number 16. We're not quite at the halfway point. We're almost there at the halfway point in terms of time. 26 minutes complete, 34 to go plus the final lap. But the key thing is here, it's anybody's race at this time as we ride on board the gearbox here. Dave Bowers, he makes his way out to turn number 3. As he heads out to the left hand and all the way down the rest of the roster. This time it is the case a little bit further away from Zaniga at this point, and I think for Zaniga it is the case, as we hear that a brief lift out from David Bauer is the case, just lifting out about 50 metres early before his braking point in order to save some fuel. He's definitely right now trying to get the fuel tank to go longer compared to his peers as they make the way up the hill, and let's just listen in. No lift out there into turn number 6 here. I don't think he feels he's got the space to be able to lift out into the corner. And the same into turn number 8 as we do see Zaniga look into the inside. It's a brief look, but meanwhile Robert Abrams up the inside of Achatella, and as they make the way in towards turn number 9, Achatella loses another place, but I think this is the master plan from the Delta driver. He's playing the much bigger game compared to everyone else. He knows he doesn't need to fight with any of these Alpha drivers right now to be leading in his respective championship class, but at the same time I think he's got the ace up his sleeve, which is he is doing a colossal amount of fuel saving in that Veloster right now in order to stay right in the hunt for a potential top 5, if not an overall podium. And as they roll the way out to turn number 12 and up the hill here, now he's going to rely on Robert Abrams to give him the pull all the way out towards the timeline and into turn number 1. But as they come on through, it's that long run, and you can see David Bauer here going defensive in the run through the kink of 15. Will he peel in? Nope, they stay as they were, but Zaniga's very close here as they make their way across the timeline, and Zaniga's looking for the move. He's not quite there. He keeps tempting it, he keeps teasing it out, but every time David Bauer's just got enough to stay ahead, and Jon Lauzon stays behind as we ride on board here with the P3 drive. Only moments ago, of course, we were riding on board with Zaniga as he looked for the move versus Lauzon, and Bauer into turn number 4, but now it's Lauzon who tries to look for the move for P2. But as they head down the straight and up towards turn 4, no change, although he comes in like a missile almost. I think he's going to hit the back of the Veloster, but to be fair, that's the closing speed of these cars, and that of course is why you brake early when you're chasing another car in front of you, and Jon Lauzon there just timing it right as they make their way out to turn 4 and up towards 6 as they roll the way into the braking zone here. No change at the moment. They're all sizing one another up, and you can see Lauzon taking a lot more momentum through turn number 7 by comparison, and then behind we see Robert Abrams here. He's closed up to the back of the Beaver Buzz driver, Jerome Virgilis, as the Yellow Flag Motorsports Championship leader as they make their way through turn number 9. And Robert Abrams, we're hoping, will be able to unleash the beast in that car come the second half of this race once he's made his pit stop right now, because Abrams, after a difficult day at Donington, would love, I think, to put himself back on that podium in this sprint race, if not take the win, in order to really give himself some comfort in the championship standings as we head into that mid-season break. But as they head through turn number 12 right now, of course, all our drivers knowing so much is on the line, given the fact that when they come back to these cars after the mid-season break, there'll be a different balance of performance applied to them, and it will really shake up the field. There's no doubt about that. Right now, they're trying to get all the best possible points in the current balance of performance as this race. And as they make their way up towards the timeline once again, we do reach the halfway point as they head across. No attempt at moves this time around, but meanwhile, a bit further back down the order in the battle for P11. As we see here, Paul Mikolajczyk chasing after Gus Blondel. No change between the pair, but they are closing up together. Mikolajczyk is pushing as they both come into the pits to take their mandated pit stop. But meanwhile, as they make the way through onto another lap, we look back to leader pack here, and we can see Jerome Virgilez this time having to go a little bit defensive coming out the Curva del Sol. Versus always Robert Abrams behind, and well, Abrams is thinking about it here, and Virgilez is trying to send a very strongly worded message to Abrams, which is, I'm not letting you through at this point. And of course, now that we are at that pit stop mark around the halfway point of the race, this is where track position now becomes key, and you'll see some drivers really try and go for the moves. We see Francois Shink here looking to try and go round the outside of Connor Achatella into turn number 6. He can't quite find it, and Shink's going to try and force this move into 8, I reckon, as he goes for the cutback, and he goes for it very late on the brakes here into turn number 8. Achatella, to be fair, is quite compliant there, but as they make the way into turn number 9, we do believe that Achatella right now is playing a much bigger game in terms of fuel saving here and not battling too hard. He doesn't want to lose pace with the leaders as they make the way into turn number 10, but as they do, Logan McKenzie looks up the inside. He sends it quite late on Achatella. Achatella once again gives him the space, reacts well, but McKenzie then trying to go for that move. All he's done, he's lost a bit of momentum, and now he's actually giving Matt Shepker an opportunity to look for that move for P8 as they roll the way into Juncal corner. Well, I think there's going to be some pit stops on the cards as we see Virgilez goes onto the grass and just avoids the barrier there as he brings the car back onto the circuit using the escape road, and well, that was a very near miss moment for Virgilez. He loses all those places. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, David Bauer versus Jorge Zuniga now ups the ante as they make the way across that timeline into turn 1. Zuniga on the outside, Bauer on the inside, and Zuniga takes the lead of this race as they make the way into the corner. Further back, Logan McKenzie up the inside of Achatella, this time into turn 1. But Achatella holds the inside into 2 as they snap back, and as they roll the way into turn number 3, Achatella's not giving up here. I think Logan McKenzie has just not got enough momentum, but the momentum is building in the battle for the lead. As we do see David Bauer here, he's back ahead of Zuniga coming out of turn 3 in the run down towards 4, and Jon Lauzon's up the inside. There's a bit of a tap there between the two of them, and well, that's not going to upset the balance of the cars too much. Of course, these touring cars can take a bit of a knock, although we don't encourage it of our drivers. It is the case, touring car racing is always going to generate some knocks and bangs, and as they make the way out towards turn number 6, we can see here how it's now becoming a bit of a mad scramble in the hunt for P6, to the fact that McKenzie's trying to get the move done versus Achatella, but he's just not able to get it all sealed and done. And as Achatella looks to the return into turn 8, McKenzie finally gets it done, but this has cost this group a lot of time. It's cost them 2 seconds versus Shink in front, and that 2 seconds could be a game changer when we have those pit stops, of course, given the fact that they'll be looking to see how much fuel they've saved compared to their opponents, and those 2 seconds could be make or break right now. But given the fact that Bauer is under huge pressure to be right on board the gearbox here of your race leader, Jon Lauzon's found his way into that P2. Zuniga, who was leading for a couple of corners, is now back in P3. This chop and change of positions here means that this field is only going to naturally come back together, and we should point out as well that Micah Hendricks, who started from the back row, he started P17, he's in P10 right now, and he's only 2 seconds off this top 9 as David Bauer makes his way on through and not into the pit lane. Do we see anybody coming on in? No, I don't think so. I think everybody stays on out here as they make the way through the timeline. In fact, one driver does come in, that Shepka comes in, but more importantly right now, Lauzon takes a look on the inside, but he can't quite get it done. There's a lock up on the brakes there from Zuniga behind us. See Robert Abrams getting a bit close, but Jon Lauzon is all over the back of Bauer as they make the way through 3 and up towards 4 they charge, and surely now the Beaver Buzz driver is going to have David Bauer on his heels. They make the way up towards turn number 4, and as they make the way towards the braking zone, Lauzon's going to go all the way around the outside here. Can he get it done? Well, I think if he's going to go for it here, this is brave. And the thing is, if he does commit to this move, which he is, it's going to cost them so much time compared to drivers behind 2 by 2 as they come out of turn number 5. Lauzon's going to have the inside into turn 6. Behind Zuniga's defending on the inside versus Abrams for P3. And as they roll the way for the right-hander here, Zuniga's going to look for the double move. And can he get it done into turn number 7? No, he can't. He's going to commit into 8. And behind, Robert Abrams also looks to get in the mix. But he's on the outside there. And meanwhile, David Bauer hooks it around the outside. There's contact between Zuniga and Abrams, and Zuniga is pushed a little bit wide there, but meanwhile Lauzon versus Bauer as they make the way through 9 and up into 10. Well, David Bauer right now, he tried to go all the way round to the inside and back to the outside. It hasn't worked out. He's still in P2. Robert Abrams into P3 after that contact with Jorge Zuniga. Hasn't cost them too much, to be fair. Just a brief knock between the two of them, but Zuniga's dropped all the way down to P5. But to be fair, he's right in this hunt still as they make the way out of turn in number 12. Meanwhile, further back, we can see that Aaron Lar trying to find his way past Fernando Takahashi for P13. Not able to do so at the moment as they make the way into turn number 8. He's going to try and look round the outside. Takahashi defends here as Aaron Lar tries to go for the cutback. But I can tell you that Matt Shepko and also James Carr both came into the pits on that previous lap. And as we see our race leaders come across the timeline, none of them coming in. They all decide to stay out here. They're all waiting to see the other driver flinch first. But of course, the thing is, the more these guys battle, could it be the case that we could see James Carr and also what would be Matt Shepka jump right up there into the mix? With that, it's not James Carr, because remember, he did have to come on in and serve what was, I believe it was a drive-through penalty. In fact, it's got to have been an actual pit stop, because he's come out behind with Shepka and Bajulaz. Well, I think, therefore, it is the case. We were a bit mistaken on our statement earlier on, and our time screens were a little bit incorrect, as we hear that Auguste Blondel's into the pit lane as well. But one thing we could definitely say that right now, it is the case that Bajulaz, Shepka and Carr, having made their pit stops early, they will be looking to try and jump ahead of this group, particularly if they keep on battling like this. And they are battling hard, as we're hearing that Fernando Takahashi's into the pit lane, which will release Aaron Lar into P12 as they make the way on through the pits. And as they come down towards turn number 8, our lead drivers right now we're focusing more on, it is the case that Jon Lauzon holding on to this lead for the time being. David Bauer right now right behind him, but Lauzon has got himself into lead at the right time, I feel, given the fact the pit stops are right round the corner. We're waiting to see a reaction as Robert Abrams there sneaks up the inside into turn 10. Well, that came for a long way back. But to be fair, Robert Abrams there showing that it's not out of the system for the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver. He has got that racer inside him still, but it is the case he's just waited to show it in small increments as he makes his way through Trickett corner. But Robert Abrams there, now that was a brilliant piece of overtaking as they make the way up the hill. And as they roll the way through the long left sequence of turns 13 through to 15, it is the case that Jon Lauzon's been given a little bit of a breather as they head on through. Will we see any of them peel into the pits this time around? Our top 5 do not. It is the case they all stay there, but meanwhile Micah Hendricks does come on in, so Hendricks decides enough's enough. But meanwhile we see that Shink there, oh, going to spin Shink on the grass. He puts the rear right tyre onto the grass into turn 1, keeps it together just about as the number 18 driver, but that mistake could have been very costly for him. And Zuniga right now caught up behind him, will be thinking that he's got to find a way on through, because he's losing time on the leaders as they make their way down the retro pasta here, and he looks up the inside into turn 4. Well, I think this is going to be a very late move for Zuniga, given the fact he's just not able to outpace that Elantra, and in the end, so be it, he stays in P5 as they roll the way down through turn number 5 and up towards 6 they charge. But as they do, what's happening in the strategy, we can see that Micah Hendricks has completed his pit stop as he makes his way on out, but James Carr, well, he is right now in P10 with Matt Shepka P9, and then we have Jerome Julaz in P8. And it's these two in particular we're very focused on, given the fact that they come out together and they're still working together right now to go hunting after the leaders. They were in that lead pack, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jerome Bajulas and Shepka are right up there at the front of the pack when they all emerge on the pits, if not jumping right into the lead. But we'll have to wait and see. They do have James Carr trying to close up to them, and Carr right now trying to get himself settled, given the fact he's not been on the pace of Shepka and Bajulas, and Micah Hendricks having just taken his pit stop. We'll have to wait to see what his pace looks like once he's up to speed. He's come out ahead of Aaron Lar. He's come out by a second over Aaron Lar, as meanwhile we look back up towards our leaders right now. The battle is ongoing, but Jon Lauzon definitely trying to put some space between himself and the rest of the field. He's doing so quite well at the moment, and this is key for him because it does give him initiative. He can decide whether he wants to come in first or whether he's going to let everybody else have that pit stop before him. But of course, when you're the leader, the downside is you can't fuel save as easily, given the fact you haven't got anybody to take the toe off of to give you the lap time you lose for fuel saving. But as they make the way through turn number 1, this time around we can see Robert Abrams close behind, and as we ride on board here with the Veloster driver, here's against the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver. He had a difficult qualifying session, of course, starting all the way down in what was P10, but he's jumped all the way out to P2, and this has been very smart racing, the racing we love to see from Robert Abrams. And to be fair, what he's been known for from the start of the season all the way back at Belle Isle in Detroit, and as he makes his way into turn number 4. And I should clarify, by the way, when I said the state of Detroit earlier, I meant the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit. It is the case as Robert Abrams chases after Jon Lauzon up the hill into turn number 5. It is the case right now, the American driver definitely playing his cards right here, and I think if he can nail this run to the pit lane, he'll be right in the mix. But there's so many questions that we have to ask ourselves right now in terms of strategies as he gets closer and closer to the back of Lauzon here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's thinking about a potential move here with a couple of laps to go before his pit stop, given the fact that he's really come through this field. He's come through very smart, but now he's started to try and unleash the pace of the Veloster as they make their way through turn number 10. As they come out to the corner, you can see that David Bow not too far behind. David Bow, of course, your leader for such a long time in this race, and now he's fallen back to P3. But to be fair, when I say he's fallen back to P3, that does sound a little bit ominous. It's not ominous in the fact that he's just right now holding that position with Francois Shink behind, and then you have Logan McKenzie who's catching back up to the top 4 after falling back a little bit in that battle with Zuniga and also Achatella. But right now, as they make the way through the kink of 14 and onwards towards 15 they go, you can see the Snake Train making its way to the pit entry line, and will they all come in? It does look as though everyone peeling on in, but here's the interesting part. We've still got some who go long, and Francois Shink will go on to lead a lap of this race, so that will be his target to get an extra point as he makes his way into turn number 1. And as they make the way down the hill through the centre S and into the Curva del Sol, the question also is now, where will Jerome Bajulas come out of this? Well, Jon Lauzon has already left his pit box. That was very fast from Jon Lauzon. In fact, I think he's missed his pit box slightly. Here comes Jerome Bajulas, as meanwhile Bow, Zuniga, Lauzon and Abrams are all in their pit boxes being serviced. This is going to be very close, and Abrams is the first to clear his pit stop, and then it is going to be what is Zuniga followed, well, in fact it's Lauzon followed by Bow. But as they make the way on through, here comes Jon Lauzon. He's at the head of the group. He's got out just ahead of Wiz Robert Abrams. They make the way out to the pit lane here, and how's it all going to come together? Well, as they make the way through, we look to the blimp camera, and there you can see in the rear of your picture, that is Jerome Bajulas, and Bajulas is not close enough here as they make the way down the back straight. But as they do, look at Robert Abrams. He's not taking no for an answer. He's up the inside into turn number 4, and Abrams had the fastest pit stop of the trio, and Zuniga's a bit further back. He's come out in P10. I think they've had to do some repair work to the car. But as they make the way up towards turn number 6 right now, it is the case as they roll the way into the right-hander. Well, Jon Lauzon going on the offensive here to defend versus what is David Bow, but also to try and get that move back. But look at David Bow, he's up the inside into turn 8. He goes there, and Lauzon opens the steering, and Bow goes all in there, and to be fair, has to try and get the car stopped. But now Jerome Bajulas is going to try and help his teammate out as they make the way out to 9 and up into 10. As they roll the way out to 9 into the turn 10 right-hander. In this case, Bajulas right back into this battle. But the key thing is, the key fact is that now we have Robert Abrams into the lead of this group, and that could be the lead of the race when he makes his way across that timeline and through turns 1 through to 3. Meanwhile, our race leaders are in. Francois Shink has led a lap of this race. He's in at the head of the group. Logan McKenzie behind him, Connor Achatella as well. And now we'll have to wait to see. We were expecting that Achatella's been doing the most fuel saving of everybody. He stated as your leader there. That's because that's where his pit box is in relation to everybody's. But look at Abrams here. He's breaking away, and Abrams is going all in. As meanwhile, Francois Shink is leaving his pit box already, and he's making his way on out. So's McKenzie, so's Achatella right now. And as they make the way on through, well, Francois Shink, I think he's nailed this one to the cross in terms of the way he's done the strategy as he makes his way on through. But meanwhile, Lauzon's off circuit. He's got it wrong at turn 1. We're not sure what's happened, but Shink is now your leader of the race. Here comes Logan McKenzie as well. There's Achatella, and meanwhile on the right of him is going to be Robert Abrams. Abrams not close enough, and I think there may have been a bit of contact between Bauer, Lauzon, Bajulas and Shepka, given the fact that Lauzon has gone off circuit. He's rejoined. He's a long way back now, but meanwhile Bauer goes deep at turn number 4, and as they roll the way through turn number 5, it is the case that Bauer's not going to defend up to turn number 6. He's got to defend on that inside line. Can he hold Bajulas at bay, or will Bajulas go all the way around the outside? Well, Bauer lets the car understeer a little bit there to try and force Bajulas to go even deeper into the corner to cost himself time. But as they make the way into turn 8, well, he's gone deep himself under braking into 8. He'll defend into 9 on that inside, but Bajulas gets him very close. And meanwhile, Shepka here just watching and witnessing what's going on as we ride on board here with the Honda Civic Type R driver, our only Honda Civic inside the top 10, and indeed our only car outside the Hyundais in the top 10 as he makes his way out to turn number 10 and in for 11. As he rolls his way down the hill at this point, of course, he's got to play the smart game. He's gained places through the pit window, there's no doubt about that. Up to P7 right now with Carr, Lauzon and Zuniga a lot further down. Hendricks in P11 as well, Aaron P12, but it is all still to play for here with less than 17 minutes to go We're not long until the final quarter of the race, and of course we do have the big question: what will happen to the Hyundai Elantras in particular with regards to their tyre wear? Will it be too much for them to handle? We'll have to wait and see. But Shink is your leader as they go on to another lap here. The Beaver Buzz driver leads this race by a margin of 2.8 seconds over Logan McKenzie and Robert Abrams, battling with Connor Achatella here, and the Delta driver of Achatella. Well, this was his game plan, to run as long as possible, hold track position, and then try and hold on to an overall podium come the finish. Now, can he do it, given the fact he is battling with the championship leader? He is battling with the driver who we would argue has the best pace of everybody in terms of race pace. Hasn't shown in qualifying recently, but he's definitely shown a huge amount of race, craft and pace nuance over the course of whether it's a 15-minute, a 30-minute or a 60-minute distance. And right now, the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver absolutely delivering. Meanwhile, a bit further back in the hunt for the final spot inside the top 10, here is Jorge Zuniga chasing after Micah Hendricks, and these two in the Veloster, both having difficult races so far. Hendricks having come from the back of the grid into that P10 position, and Zuniga, of course, starting all the way up at P2 on the front row of the grid. He has lost out through one thing or another, involving a number of instances as well, which were not necessarily his fault, waiting on Stuart's confirmation of that, of course. And it is the case that right now the number 11 driver definitely feeling the pinch in that P11 position as he gets so ever close to his rival for P10. As they roll the way out of Periolio corner and now make the way into turn number 10. It is, I guess we can see Hendricks going defensive and Zuniga being forced to try and go round the outside. But there's only really one way to get this done, and that is on the inside into 10. Instead, he's got to focus on the run towards turn number 1 at this point. But as they make the way down the drop in towards turn number 12, we look back to the battle for P2 as it comes past on stationary camera at turn number 15. As they make the way all the way through turn 15, it must be said that Logan McKenzie at this point, well, he is trying to hold on to that P2, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying to afford an opportunity to Abrams to get onto the podium as they make the way into turn 1. 15 minutes still to go, but to be fair, McKenzie as well could be suffering from tyre degradation here. Francois Shink, to be fair, in the same car as him, does not seem to be suffering as much, but we'll have to wait and see. I think there's more teamwork going on here as Abrams is very close this time to the back of Achatella as they make the way down the Retroposta, and as they make the way out towards turn 4, Abrams on the inside here, Achatella on the outside. He's boxed in by the Yellow Flag Motorsports drivers, and I think they've executed this perfectly if that was their intention, because Achatella now has to stay behind the pair as they roll the way through turn number 5, and Abrams is going to overtake his teammate as well. It's going to be a drag race up the hill here, but they make themselves too wide. There's no way Achatella can make this 3 wide, and Abrams up into P2, and that is a critical move for the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver, given the fact that now he can go hunting after Francois Shink, and we will believe that he's got the tyres to do so compared to the Elantra driver who's leading the race. But meanwhile, Achatella drops the place. He won't be too bemused by that or frustrated, to be fair, given the fact that his main goal will be to be the Delta Championship leader going into the mid-season break. And at the same time, it is the case that he wants every point out there, and he's not afraid to take the fight to the Alpha drivers as they make the way down through turn number 11. We're hearing that Fernando Takahashi is into the pit lane, and he has come on in to service his pit stop. And in fact, he's come out of the pits already and makes his way back out in P17. But as our drivers roll the way up the hill this time around, you can see how it's now Robert Abrams leading the best of the rest pack off of our leader in that P2 through to what is P8 train as they make the way onwards towards what will shortly be lap number 28, and with 13 minutes on the clock by the time they go on to this lap, as we see Shink in the foreground to the camera, your race leader. Achatella right now, well, he does have Logan McKenzie, his teammate, behind him, but his teammate's under pressure here from, in fact, that was Robert Abrams who has got Logan McKenzie behind him, and it's Achatella who's putting the pressure on there. Getting my names mixed up as Jon Lauzon and Jorge Zuniga both into the pit lane, and surely that has got to be a drive-through penalty. It can't be for another pit stop here, and if so, they've made an absolute blunder in the pits. But as they make the way down the back straight here, we focus on what's happening right now, and we see that Logan McKenzie, the better run as they head down towards turn 4, and we're trying to work with his teammate here not to cost one another places. But look at Achatella here getting all up behind the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver, and I don't think they've got a choice here. I think Achatella's calling their bluff and deciding to go all in. And the thing is, the more they battle over this, the more they're going to bring the rest of the field in. And look at David Bauer there. Well, he's getting a little bit racy, a bit of contact there with Jerome Bajulas. He gets the move for P5, and as he makes his way into turn number 8, he's going to try and squeeze up the inside of Achatella here. But Achatella's going to have the inside into turn number 9 as they roll the way on through. Jerome Bajulas as well tries to get his nose in there versus David Bauer to say, I can do what you can do. Ooh, and there's more contact between the two of them. And to be fair, I think both of them right now are starting to let a little bit of the blood vessel whistles go to the head as they make the way towards turn number 11. And as they do, well, I think the elbows are coming out. They don't mean it between one another. Of course, great rivalry, and we are going to have some elbows out. That's touring car, of course, as they make the way into turn number 12. But you get the feeling that all these guys now are building up to a massive crescendo. And the question is, who's going to be leading the orchestra when they come to the checkered flag? Well, I think Francois Shink, who's 5.3 seconds clear at the front of the field, he's got this done and dusted, unless there's a major error or a drive-through right at the end. Of course, we don't hope that on anybody, including our race leader, but the question will be, who is going to be leading this battle for P2 all the way to the line on that last lap? And it's Logan McKenzie right now, who is ahead of his teammate Robert Abrams, but Abrams taking a look up the inside into turn number 1. And McKenzie going deep into 2, and this is going to really hurt the momentum of the whole group here as they make their way through turn 3. And look at Achetella once again, he's trying to go all the way around the outside, but that is not going to work as they make the way out of 3 and head down towards 4. And at this point, it's David Bauer now who's trying to get past all of them in the run to turn 4. Abrams is the head of the group, David Bauer the inside of McKenzie, and as they roll the way for a left-hander here, it is the case that David Bauer gets into P3 for a brief moment. McKenzie's off circuit. I wonder if there was a little bit of a knock there between Bauer and McKenzie, but regardless, they make their way up the hill and towards turn number 6, and as they do, McKenzie defending the inside, and this is a land Robert Abrams to try and break away. Can McKenzie be the cork in the bottle that his teammate needs right now as they make their way in towards turn number 8? You can see Jerome Bagilla's up the inside of Achetella. He's up the inside of David Bauer, but Bauer defends the inside into 9. And Jerome Bagilla is once again frustrated by David Bauer as they make the way out to the corner. Behind them, that is James Carr trying to get into the mix as well. Remember, James Carr pitted much earlier on. There's also Shepka as Carr goes up the inside into turn number 10 versus Achetella as Achetella almost goes onto the grass there on the exit of the corner. Shepka just watching on in P8 here. It is the case they're all delicately trying to switch places, but as they do, there's no wonder if there's a bit of contact between them. Micah Hendricks right now is 4.3 seconds behind this group and is gradually closing as well as they make the way on through. I can tell you one thing, with all this battling in the hunt for P2, it is causing their pace to drop away like a stone. And to put that in perspective, as our racer will cross the line, look at the battle behind. It's so far away right now, but as he crossed the line, that lap was a 43.41. Robert Abrams' lap of 44.56. They are losing at least a second to the race leader right now in this mad scramble for P2. But to be fair, we can't complain because we love it. This is what it's all about, AlphaTouring Challenge, and Season 5 has delivered so far, and it's delivering again here at Interlagos today as they make the way out to turn number 3 and down towards 4. And as they come charging now, we look to the blimp camera here, and as they roar their way in towards the braking zone for 4, you can see David Bauer staying right. Oh, goodness me, and I think James Carr trying to go around the outside there. Wheel on the grass in the braking zone. I think he would argue he was squeezed there by Bagilas. I think Bagilas would argue that there was no way through for him, but as they make the way up the hill, the thing is clear is that James Carr's just lost the place towards Achetella, and Shepard's going to try and go around the outside into 6. He's not going to get it, I don't think, as we hear that Jermaine Warren's into the pit lane. I think that may be a penalty because that will be his second visit to the pits, and as they roll the way through the right hand here, no difference this time as Shepka stays where he is in P8. But to be fair for James Carr, he's lost one place in battling with Jerome Bagilas. He's lost the place to Achetella, and now he's got it all to do again. And here comes Micah Hendricks with less than 9 minutes left. Can he get into this fight? Could he potentially go from starting at the back of the field to a top 5 finish? That would be a huge achievement for the 473 driver. I wouldn't put it past him right now because he is delivering at 42s. He is the fastest man on circuit right now. He is absolutely flying is the Veloster drive. He's lapping a second a lap faster than our race leader, in fact. But as he makes his way up the hill, I think that fastest lap is definitely going to be in his hands at this point. In fact, it's not. It's in the hands of Robert Abrams. I should correct myself on the 42.17. Hendricks 200 slower by comparison, but that is 1 point which is going to be debated between drivers. But meanwhile, the bigger points being debated between drivers are the points for finishing on the podium, and we can see here Robert Abrams right now trying to hold everybody at bay, as meanwhile James Carr the inside of Achetella into turn 1. They get the switch back into 2, but this time Achetella finding no way back through. But meanwhile Shepka now trying to go round the outside as the clouds come over here. It's getting a little bit dark at the Interlagos circuit, but as they head on down towards turn number 4, Shepka trying to have the speed out the corner, but that Honda just does not have the straight line speed compared to its contemporaries. And as they make the way under braking, well, Shepka's going to try and go round the outside. The Honda can do that, it's got the stronger brakes, but you can see they're drifting a little bit wide, and as a result Achetella holds the place as they make the way through the kink of 5. As they roll the way up the hill, meanwhile Abrams here holding on versus his teammate of McKinsey, and they're working this one as best as they can together, the two Yellow Flag Motorsport drivers. David Bauer behind in P4, staying ever close as they make the way into turn number 8, and as they roll the way through the right-hander into left of 9, we can see McKinsey making that Elantra wide enough for 2 as they roll the way down through 9 up into 10, and as they come into the right-hander, you can see Bajulas taking a little bit of a look to the inside versus Bauer, but not committing to it because he knows if he tries to go for it, it's only going to open up the door to the other breakfast within the drive behind of James Carr. But as they roll the way through turn 11 into 12, it is the case they're all sizing one another up. They've been doing this for so long, they've been taking little snipes here and there. But the problem is, now if they look to make a move, it could be costly all the way to the end of the race. And you can see here Robert Abrams right now, and this is the problem with the Veloster, it just does not have the straight line speed of the Elantra. And as they make the way for the kink of 15, McKinsey has gone to the outside here, and Robert Abrams is into the pit lane for track limit, and that is going to be a driver, and this is going to be the opportunity for David Bauer to try and get P2. But the thing is, Logan McKinsey, his mission now, he'll have it on the radio, he has to finish P2, that'll be his target, he'll want to finish P2, but the team will be saying that he's got to do it with one of them in the pit to drive through. He's now got to deliver and bring one car home on the podium, there's no doubt about that. And to be fair, we have seen a fired up McKinsey all the way since the European Tour, and right now in the South American continent, it's hot, it's sweaty, and will he be fire in his belly with regards to trying to hold on to the place, or will it be the case the fire will go out and David Bauer find his way round the outside through turns 4 and 5? Well, I think David Bauer's got the momentum here as they make the way up towards turn number 6, and will Jerome Bajulas is going to try and get on the mix now. Will McKinsey try and play this smart and cut back on the pair of them? Well, David Bauer's got ahead as they roll the way up into turn number 8, and Bajulas at this point, I think he says, if you're going to leave the door open like that, I'm going to come through. And look at James Carr as well, and McKinsey loses the 2 places. Carr tries to make it a freeway loss, but in the end it's not going to happen. He's made to wait his turn, but McKinsey loses out there. But to be fair, with 5 minutes to go, we've still got a couple more laps after this one. It's not over yet. McKinsey could still be on that podium, and he could definitely still be in P2, but the Elantras right now, their tyres will be feeling the pain as they've been running for so long. And the thing is, this is where it comes down to who saved their tyres the most as they roll the way through. Particularly those front tyres, they're taking a beating as they make the way up the hill this time around. The race leader of what is Francois Shink already towards the timeline, and he will go on to what will be 2 more laps of races. We're to understand, in fact, it may be 3 more laps if my maths is correct. But regardless, with the laps now winding down, there's not long to go. And meanwhile, as they make the way out to Juncal corner, we can see that Jorge Zuniga trying to battle his way past Aaron Lara as they make the way through the kink of 14. In towards 15 they go. He's got ahead for the time being. This is the final spot inside the top 10. But now Aaron Lara's trying to come back up through as they make the way down to the braking zone here. Side by side in the long run into turn 1. It's Lara on the inside, Zuniga on the outside. Zuniga's going to try and hang it all the way around the outside to inside. But I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. Behind him is Jon Lauzon as well as they roll the way through the right hander here, and Jon Lauzon has not had a happy moment since going off at turn 1, I can tell you that. And right now he's trying to squeeze his way past his rival earlier on in the race as Zuniga as they make the way down the back straight of the Reto Aposta and up towards turn number 4. But as they do, who's going to come out on top here in this battle to be the final driver inside the top 10? Well, Lauzon looks up the inside, he gets it done for now, but he goes deep, and Zuniga looks to get the return move. A nice cutback there from Zuniga to defend the position, and now can he run it all the way up the hill to turn 6 around the outside of Aaron Lara here? It's going to be Zuniga on the right, Aaron Lara on the left, and as they make the way into the corner, Zuniga backs out temporarily, but of course he's trying to size up the move here into turn number 8. He gets a little bit of a scramble there in terms of the rear, not settling down on the exit of 7. He has to wait his step, he's all over the back of Aaron Lara, and I think a move is coming, but can he make it work? In fact, he gets the better run out of turn 9. Then more rotation on the front end of the Veloster. And as he makes his way into turn number 10, I think Aaron Lara's tyres are absolutely shredding on the front because he has not got the rotation by any near comparison versus that Veloster. And as they make the way down for 11, he's definitely started to struggle. Is the Elantra driver holding on to position as they make the way through at turn number 12. But as they do, we look up towards our leaders here. It's David Bauer in P2, Jerome Bajulas P3, Logan McKinsey P4, and McKinsey under pressure from the other breakfast for dinner driver now of what is James Carr as they try to make their way around the outside. But it is the case that James Carr not able to find his way on through. McKinsey holding firm. Meanwhile, as they make the way on through to another lap, we can see going on to said lap, Aaron Lara Law here trying to look for the position versus what is Zuniga as they make the way into turn 1. Zuniga got his nose ahead initially, but of course Aaron Law on that inside. Zuniga's going to have to hold it all the way round. I think he's done it. I think he's got the move done here, and indeed Aaron Law has to back out, but Zuniga gets it a little bit wrong on the exit of 2 as they make the way through 3, and as they do it side by side here on the penultimate lap at the Interlagos circuit, and down the back straight they run here, and as they do, it is the case that Jon Lauzon trying to find his way through past Zuniga as they make the way into turn number 4, but no way through. You can see Zuniga trying to go for that cutback once again, but Aaron Law savvy to it and parks the car on corner apex at turn 4. Aaron Law very wise to the ways of the Veloster driver as they make the way up the hill towards turn number 6. But as they make the way into the right hand here at turn 6, it is the case that Aaron Law really digging deep, as meanwhile Lauzon trying to go all the way around the outside of Zuniga. Zuniga getting the better run into the corner as we're hearing there is a retirement for what is James Carr right towards the end of this race. He's in the pit lane. I think it is an official retirement. I think something's gone wrong with the car and they've had to bring him in because the engine was about to go, and that is unfortunate for James Carr, who was running in that battle for what was being right up there in the top 3, but it's not going to work out. But as they roll the way on around, we look back towards our leader right now as he goes on to the final lap of the race. 1 minute to go. It will be a 35th and final lap, and Francois Shink with an advantage of almost 8 seconds. I think feeling comfortable as they make their way to that timeline. David Bauer P2, Logan McKenzie P3, and Jerome Bajaz is into the pits. I think it's the case he's either in for a drive-through, or surely they haven't underfueled the car by a lap right at the end. If so, that's disastrous, but that re-promotes Logan McKenzie to P3. Oh, goodness me. And Shepka in contact with Micah Hendricks, and Hendricks has come all the way up to P5. He's absolutely flying. Remember, I said he could be in with a chance of a top 5 finish here. He's going to show that it's not just a chance, it's a definite fact. As meanwhile, Achatella looking for the move to be on the podium here versus Logan McKenzie on the final lap. It is all kicking off as they make the way through turn 5, but as they do, there's not long left to go, and there's not many overtaking places left where you can definitely go for the move here. Meanwhile, it's the case that Aaron Law still holding at bay Jon Lauzon and Jorge Zuniga in the battle to be in the top 10, and now Aaron Law P9, Lauzon P10, but here comes Zuniga, who's going to try and go up the inside of the pair of them as Lauzon goes off circuit. Brilliant as Zuniga looks up the inside in turn number 5. He gets it done. Or does he, as they make the way up the hill. Aaron Law defends the inside here to turn number 6. Zuniga tries to hold it around the outside. It's going to be very bold stuff here from Zuniga as he makes his way into the corner, and Jon Lauzon will try and come back on the brakes as soon as possible. Zuniga knows that Lauzon's coming, however, and yields in the end that space to the inside, but he stays there. But meanwhile, we look from them to a driver who, since breaking away in the lead of this race, particularly after the pit stops, has not looked back, for as he makes his way to the final corner, it's with a superb drive, and this is going to put him right back up into the championship standings. Here he comes. Here's your winner. It's Francois Shink from Beaver Buzz, who takes the win overall and in the Alpha class, ahead in the end of David Bauer, who comes home P2, and then Logan McKenzie P3 to complete the overall and also the Alpha podium. Connor Achatella P4, that's your Delta winner, ahead of Micah Hendricks P5, a brilliant drive from Hendricks. Matt Shepka P6, a well-deserved P6 from him. Robert Abrams P7 in the end, ahead of Jerome Bajaz P8. Then Jorge Zuniga, as he makes his way to the line, has got it done, and it's Aaron Law into the pits, and Zuniga weaving from side to side. I think he's absolutely pleased as punch. He got that P9 in the end. Jon Lauzon completes the top 10. Aaron Law in the pits, he'll be P11 classified. Then Paul Mikolajczyk P12, second place in the Delta class, ahead of Gus Blondo, who comes home in P13, third place in the Delta class, completed the Delta podium. And it's Jermaine Warren who'll be the next driver to come to the timeline as he makes his way through the last couple of corners, and as he heads on through here, it is the case. What a race it has been, and congratulations to all of our drivers and those yet to come across the line, including Jermaine Warren P14, that's P4 in the Delta class. He'll be pleased with that. Eric Statzer as well, not quite on the pace today versus his Honda counterpart in the form of Jermaine Warren, but to be fair, still a top 5 finishing class as he heads his way to the line. And well, that will be a P15 for the privateer, and then it will be Fernando Takahashi, the Audi Rs3 driver, the last driver to finish this race, of course, with James Carr with that very late retirement, 2 laps on the end, very unfortunate for him. And we did not see Andrew Trickett in the end make a lap in the race, unfortunately, due to technical issues with the car. They found a problem with the car in the build-up to the qualifying session. They weren't able to get it repaired. But here comes Fernando Takahashi, P16, and as he crosses the line, those are your finishing positions, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course. I think there might be a couple, but let's take you through those race results once more. Well, as those race results are confirmed, it is the case in the end. Francois Shink, your race winner in the end by 7.7 seconds ahead of David Bauer. Francois Shink absolutely nailing it with regards to the strategy, it must be said, and a well-deserved win. David Bauer, P2, the best of the rest by a margin in the end, given the fact that he had to battle for that P2 non-stop. And the breakfast of dinner trial will be wondering how on earth Francois Shink broke away from the field, but it was that battling to be in the lead before the pit stops, which cost so many drives so dearly. David Bauer being one of them, losing out on the win. Logan McKenzie in the end in an absolutely dogged defence, bringing home that P3, being on the podium for Yellow Flag Motorsports. Connor Achatella P4, a superb drive once again. Looking for that overall podium, wasn't able to make it a podium today, but still taking the win in the Delta class, no doubt about that. Micah Hendricks P5 ahead of Matt Shepka, Robert Abrams, Jerome Bajulaz, Jorge Zuniga and Jon Lauzon completing the top 10. And then best of the rest outside the top 10 overall, Paul Mikolajczyk there in P11. But as we look to our individual classes then, it is the case. We can see that Francois Shink taking that win ahead of Logan McKenzie. And Micah Hendricks P4 in an absolutely determined drive from the back of the field. Matt Shepka P5 to complete the top 5 of the Alpha class. Robert Abrams P6, that drive through right at the end cost him so dearly when he was hunting that P2. And that is going to hurt his championship standings considerably. And more on that at a brief moment. Jerome Bajulaz P7, Jorge Zuniga P8, Jon Lauzon P9 and Aaron Lark P10 completing the top 10 of what is there the Alpha class with James Carr with that very late and unfortunate retirement. And as we look to the Delta class, it is the case there we see your confirmation of your podium. Connor Achatella in the end winning by 23.6 seconds in the Delta class ahead of Paul Mikolajczyk, who just about managed to stay ahead of Auguste Blondor. A brilliant drive, and the two of them only being separated by a second come the finish. A great rivalry between the two drivers. Auguste Blondor P3, Jermaine Warren P4, Eric Statzer P5, and then Fernando Takahashi, the last of the finishers in the Delta class P6, ahead of Andrew Trickett, of course, not making his way to the grid due to technical difficulties. But with our standings complete, ladies and gentlemen, it is now only appropriate we take you to the championship standings after 9 rounds of racing. Now you can see here, these scores, of course, accounting for what is a drop round in the mix in terms of the potential drop rounds for our drivers. Robert Abrams goes into the mid-season break on 428 points. However, the problem is that advantage that he had, a margin at one point which was almost at 80 points, has now been diminished down to 17 points. Abrams has not had the run of form he's needed over the last couple of rounds, and therefore Francois Shink now in P2, jumping ahead of Jon Lauzon, is absolutely on a tear, is the second place driver. And well, can Francois Shink potentially, when he comes back in 2 weeks' time, go on the offensive to jump into lead of the championship? He was right up there at the start of the season, fell by the wayside down to P3, and now he's back in P2. And could we see him rise from the ashes like the Phoenix? We'll have to wait and see from the Beaver Buzz driver. Jon Lauzon, P3 there, and right now leading the rest of the pursuing pack, only 15 points clear of David Bauer, but of course the gap between himself and teammate Francois Shink standing at a margin of 54 points, so Lauzon really needs to dig deep to get into that hunt for the championship lead, otherwise we could see a 2-horse race all the way to the finish of the championship, but Lauzon still needs to focus on that P3 and holding on to it versus David Bauer and Logan McKenzie. The two of them, P4, P5, have both been delivering results. Weren't quite able to get the results I think they wanted here today, although I say that Logan McKenzie with that P3, I think he'll be pleased as punch with that, but David Bauer missing out on a win which would have seen him jump into P3 in the standings. And James Carr there outside the top 5 in P6, only by 4 points behind Logan McKenzie. But to be fair, James Carr missing out today with that very late retirement. If it was not a retirement, what could have been, he would be right up there in the top 5 as well. And keep your eyes on him. He is definitely right now, much like McKenzie, turning a huge corner as we go deeper and deeper into the season. Then we have Jerome Bajulaz in P7, 5 points behind. And right now, Bajulaz really battling to get into that top 5, but finding the degree of frustration each and every time. That P8 today, not representative of the pace he's been showing. And then Micah Hendricks in P8, our rookie to this series as of this season. But indeed, whilst he may be a rookie, he does not have a pace which would make you think he's a rookie. And that drive to P5 today, definitely keeping him right in the hunt for a top 5 finish come the end on 291 points. Connor Achatella there in P9, and we should point out that it is the case, he is a Delta driver there. There does seem to be a little bit of a glitch with regards to the standings here in terms of confirming who's which class and whatnot, but Achatella on 278 points right now, definitely well clear of his peers of the Delta class and try to stay inside that top 10 come the end of the championship. And it is Matthew Shepka who completes the top 10 on 252 points. Looking outside the top 10, who's the best the rest in P11? Well, it's none other than Daniel Smith, who was not in attendance today, but we look forward to seeing the Talk Steer Racing driver return, hopefully after the season break, and see him at the Canadian circuit. And it'll be the case the driver in the Veloster will be looking to go charging after more points and trying to get into that top 10. Going to be in P12, followed by Aaron Lahr, Auguste Blondel, and Justin T. Rhodes. And then you can see there with Auguste Blondel in P14, our second place driver in the Delta class. It is the case he has a sizable gap of what is now between 133 to 149 points. So we do the quick mental maths. That's 24 points to Daniel Sedino, our third place driver in the Delta class that currently stands, who has a nice gap now of what is 31 points over Adrian Fedorowski, who is joint on 118 points with Eric Statzer. They're both battling for P4 in the Delta class, P17 overall. Giovanni Romano and Paul Mikolajczyk complete the top 20, and outside the top 20 we have Fernando Takahashi, P21, the Audi driver in the car that definitely has not been on the pace this season, but he's been dragging it around and still getting those results and those critical points he needs, and we've seen plenty of great action from Fernando Takahashi, and we look forward to seeing him come the afterwards of the season break. Travis Hort, P22 there, ahead of Jesse Bodas, Wiley Cox and Dom Savio, P25, and then to complete the top 30, Corey Fluke, Michael McLeod, Alex Jensen, Spencer Cockayne and Jermaine Warren. And then for our final portion of the standings here from P31 to what is P38, it is the case that we have Jorge Zuniga, Casey Nimitz, Jonathan Stroll, Scotty Lund, Brandon Vez, Andrew Trickett, our newcomer for tonight, and then Sean Gurd and Steve Hansel completing the championship standings. But it's the case, that's the Drivers' Championship standings. What about the Teams' Championship standings? And we can see here, out of our 7 teams competing alongside our privateers, it is Beaver Buzz who still lead on 625 points, but their advantage is slim over Yellow Flag Motorsports. It's been back and forth between the teams, and Yellow Flag Motorsports right now only what is a margin there of 38 points behind Beaver Buzz. It could all go down to the wire in the remaining rounds, and let's not count out breakfast for dinner in P3. They are breaking away from Talk Steer Racing. They are closing the gap to the top 2, and breakfast for dinner really do seem to be the team who have the momentum on their side right now, and if they can put it together over the final 4 rounds, could we see them swing and steal away that championship right at the final hurdle? And then we have what is Talk Steer Racing at MP4 trying to stay in the hunt for the top 3 on 448 points, with Blue Flag Motorsports on 321 in P5, and then QZ Motorsports followed Gasparilla Motorsports to complete the team's championship standings. Well, those are all the standings, ladies and gentlemen, and well, with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show today and you enjoyed the racing you've seen and you want to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge, the ATC, then why not check out our official website? That is alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com. Alternatively, if you want to go straight to the heart and the source of where everything is organised and speak to the drivers and the organisers, perhaps you want to sign up for a future season or dip your toes in for the remainder of the season, then you can of course go to the ATC Discord, a link available on screen there. That's the invite link that will take you right to the Discord. It is the case now, our drivers with a lot of Discord out of the circuit, they'll now be afforded a comfortable week's break, and well, it's going to be a break before we return for round number 10 at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, one of our fastest circuits on the calendar alongside Monza. The Canadian circuit, it is going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be our final sprint round of the season, and whilst all the racing will occur on what will be, unless my memory is incorrect, Monday the 19th of September, we'll bring you all the racing action as if it were live on Sunday the 25th of September. How our drivers get on after a week's break, who will continue the momentum from where they left off, who will fall by the wayside, who will set themselves up well for the final 3 rounds, all that and more then. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in tonight, and that's all we've got time for at the ATC. We have been the ATC. I've been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.